Chapter 182.
Look, it's the Morong family.
He failed. 38th floor. He was defeated on the 38th floor. When everyone saw the person who was teleported out, they began to discuss spiritedly. Right after the Morong family member, a few other people were sent out one after another. They looked at each other in dismay, and helplessness was written all over their faces. Too difficult. That's right. I have to face a supreme being on the 38th floor. How can I, a mere battle king, fight them? It's really too difficult. Tiske, I wonder how those young emperors fought their way through.
Look, Chu Kuangren is in the lead now.
I'm not surprised. A few more white lights flashed, and a few more people were teleported out. They were all geniuses from sage orthodoxies. Damn it, I'm so close to comprehending the sage technique's Taoist rhyme. I'm so close. A prodigy from Tempest Mountains said with extreme hatred. To be able to comprehend a sage technique in 2 hours, even if one only needed a trace of Taoist rhyme to pass, it was still too difficult. Not many prodigies could do it. Look, Chu Kuangren has reached the 45th floor.
Oh my God!
At this moment, someone exclaimed. The light dot that represented Chu Kuangren was far ahead of everyone else. How could he be so fast? Ling Hu Tang, Murong Yu, and Jian Lunatic are only on the 40th floor. A prodigy asked in confusion. Have you guys heard of the rumor that Chu Kuangren managed to gain insight into the Steel Forest's 8,000 methods in half a day 3 years ago? Yes. No wonder he could rise so quickly. This guy's comprehension ability is simply not on the same level as ours. How terrifying. Inside the sword gauntlet, Chu Kuangren had the rocksteady Taoist core and the meditational clarity of self as he climbed up like a hot knife through butter. Very soon, he arrived at the 48th floor. This was the highest level that the previous challengers of the Sword Tower could reach. Ever since the Sword Tower appeared, no one had been able to break through it. Just as Chu Kuangren arrived at the 48th floor, an incredibly sharp sword-based Taoist rhyme suddenly locked onto him. A faceless swordsman in white stood in front of him. Chu Kuangren frowned. Oh, this again. He lifted his hand and blasted out a palm strike. A majestic Taoist rhyme erupted and crushed towards the faceless swordsman. However, his opponent lifted his sword and easily tore the palm energy apart. Upon seeing that, Chu Kuangren chuckled and said, "That's more like it." With a clang, the Kunwu sword at his waist was unsheathed. An extremely majestic and sharp Taoist rhyme spread. The faceless swordsman seemed to have sensed the threat as his aura continued to rise. This swordsman can actually adjust his strength according to my strength? That's just too shameless. Chu Kuangren rolled his eyes. No wonder no one had managed to pass the 48th floor in so many years. This faceless swordsman adjusts his power according to your strength. If you are strong, he will be stronger than you. What was there to fight? He might as well just raise his hands in surrender. But this is where the fun of the challenge comes in. A glint flashed across Chu Kuangren's eyes as he made the first move. The two of them collided with each other. Terrifying sword Taoist rhymes collided with each other. Sword chi spread out and impacted the entire sword tower in a frenzy. Outside the sword tower, everyone was puzzled. I don't know if it was just my imagination, but I felt the sword tower tremble just now. Hey, you felt it too. Me too. What's going on? The source of the tremor is coming from the 48th floor. Is Chu Kuangren fighting someone? TSK, the 48th floor. No one has ever been able to pass it since the sword tower was created. I wonder if Chu Kuangren can break the record and create a miracle. The sages were also staring intently at the 48th floor. Now, only Chu Kuangren was on the 48th floor. The other sky prides, including the 3 young emperors, were all in the murals. The 48th floor's trial is too terrifying. That swordsman can increase his combat strength infinitely and will always be stronger than you. There's no way to pass it. One of the sages shook his head and said, "That's right. I wonder if Chu Kuangren has any ideas?" Inside the sword tower, Chu Kuangren unleashed his heaven-slaying sword-drawing technique. The majestic emperor's aura filled the air and shocked the entire sword tower. Even an honorable supreme would not be able to withstand that attack. However, the sword chi on the faceless swordsman condensed and unleashed a sword attack. The majestic sword chi was no weaker than Chu Kuangren's. In fact, it was even stronger. When the two forces collided, Chu Kuangren was pushed back a few meters. This was the first time Chu Kuangren felt fear since he entered the realm. It was not fear but excitement. Honorable Supremes are no match for me. I can even kill Honorable Supremes, and none of the sky prides of my generation are worthy of my attention. I can't defeat a sage, and no one below the sage level can defeat me either. I've never been able to fight to my heart's content. Today, I can finally fight to my heart's content. Chu Kuangren was not afraid that he would die here. Not to mention his immortal body, the sword tower had some kind of protection mechanism that would teleport him away if he was in danger. Chu Kuangren gripped his descendant self-sword tightly and dashed out. All kinds of techniques were unleashed from his hands. Heaven-slaying sword-drawing technique, White Lotus Light of Purification, Phantom Light Strike, Human Mountain Stamp. Each of them was a shocking cultivation technique in the outside world. 9 Heaven Sword Prison, Green Lotus Sword Song, Sword of the Heavens. The 3 great Taoist physique transformations were unleashed. The 5 supreme foundation levels within his body radiated with a dazzling divine light. Spiritual power whizzed out of his body and crazily slammed into the void. At this moment, Chu Kuangren was like a godly king of swords. Every move he made had a terrifying power that could destroy the world. However, the sword chi that the faceless swordsman emitted was also very terrifying. The stronger Chu Kuangren became, the stronger he became. There were a few times when Chu Kuangren almost could not hold on anymore. However, throughout the battle he was highly focused. His nerves were stretched taut, and he was constantly in a high-pressure state. During this process, he felt that he had become more proficient in using Tao techniques, and the spiritual mound within his body was trembling. The surrounding spiritual chi gathered towards him, allowing him to step into the complete battle monarch realm. He had broken through in the midst of battle. Limit breakthrough? Very well, let's see if you can get any stronger. Chu Kuangren was pleasantly surprised. He then dashed out again, and his combat strength was even more terrifying than before. The 48th floor shook violently as he fought. Break! Seizing an opportunity, Chu Kuangren slashed out with the descendant self-sword, and the violent energy immediately sent the faceless swordsman flying. The majestic sword chi wreaked havoc on the opponent's body, tearing it apart and shattering it into pieces. Phew, did I succeed? Chu Kuangren panted slightly. However, after that, the sword chi that filled the sky gathered in front of him, and the faceless swordsman reappeared. Moreover, the sword chi on his body was even stronger than before. F***me. Even Chu Kuangren could not help but curse. This was just too shameless. He could not be killed, and his combat strength would always be stronger than yours. Was the 48th floor really something that could be passed by humans? He even suspected that the owner of the sword gauntlet did not want anyone to pass. If he didn't want anyone to pass, then there's no need for the 48th floor to exist, let alone the 49th floor. There must be a trick in this that I haven't figured out yet, Chu Kuangren murmured. Chapter 183. Outside the Sword Tower. One by one, the prodigies were teleported out. Level 47. Just a little more and I will be able to comprehend the sage technique's Taoist rhythm. Damn it! Ling Huteng gritted his teeth. He looked at the sword tower with a face full of unwillingness. At this moment, there were only 3 people left in the sword tower. They were Chu Kuangren and lunatic swordsman on the 48th floor, and Murong Yu on the 47th floor. At that moment, a white light flashed past the entrance of the sword tower. Murong Yu was also transported out. Just like Ling Huteng, he was also stuck at the 47th floor. Neither of them had successfully passed. Lunatic swordsman and Chu Kuangren. I can't believe those 2 have reached the 48th floor. Murong Yu could not help but narrow his eyes. Since ancient times, there weren't many sword cultivators who could reach the 48th level. I didn't expect there to be 2 this time. That's right. I wonder which of the 2 is stronger? The prodigies outside the sword gauntlet were all discussing among themselves. But Chu Kuangren has been on the 48th floor for quite some time now, hasn't he? He's been here for more than an hour now. A sword cultivator suddenly said. When the crowd heard this, they could not help but gasp. What? More than an hour? F***me. Since the beginning of time, only a handful of sword cultivators have been able to reach the 48th floor, and none of them were able to stay there for more than a quarter of an hour. Yet Chu Kuangren managed to stay there for more than an hour? With this alone, he has already created history.
As expected of Chu Kuangren.
At this moment, lunatic swordsman Ling Feng was teleported out. His aura was extremely dispirited, as if he had just experienced a great battle. 7 moves. I could only withstand 7 moves from the faceless swordsman. The 48th floor is too terrifying. I reckon that among the elites who came to the sword gauntlet this time, I'm the only one who reached the 48th level. It's a pretty good result. After saying this, Ling Feng looked at the sword tower. Then his pupils shrank. There's someone else. There's actually someone who reached the 48th level like me. This aura. It's Chu Kuangren. Although he was shocked, Ling Feng thought about it carefully and felt that it was reasonable. After all, it was very likely that the other party was not weaker than him. How long has he been on the 48th floor? Ling Feng casually asked a sword cultivator beside him. It's almost been 2 hours. Hearing this, Ling Feng's face was filled with disbelief. Impossible, how could someone persist on the 48th level for 2 hours? After all, he had only managed to withstand 7 moves, which was less than half an hour. Yet, Chu Kuangren managed to last for almost an hour? How was this possible? Indeed, it has been almost 2 hours. When I came out, he had just reached the 48th floor. I've always remembered it. A sword cultivator said confidently. Ling Feng's Dao heart trembled when he heard that. He could not even hold on for half a quarter of an hour, but Chu Kuangren was able to hold on for close to an hour. The gap between him and Chu Kuangren was huge. Not only Ling Feng, but the others also felt that it was unbelievable. Do you think he can pass the 48th level? A sword cultivator suddenly said. Impossible. Ling Feng said resolutely and decisively. No one can pass through the 48th level. That level is too terrifying. Since the beginning of time, no one has been able to pass it, not even Chu Kuangren. That's right. You're strong, but that faceless swordsman is even stronger. Let me ask you, how are you going to pass this stage? No matter how strong Chu Kuangren is, it's impossible for him to defeat someone stronger than him. Murong Yu's face was also filled with confidence. However, as soon as he finished speaking, the dot of light that belonged to Chu Kuangren suddenly began to move, and under everyone's watchful eyes, he had arrived at the 49th floor. Everyone was dumbfounded. Nangong Huang and the others looked at Ling Feng and Murong Yu playfully. Who was the one who said that elder senior brother can't pass this stage? Oh my! This slap in the face came so unexpectedly. Ling Feng and Murong Yu's expressions were extremely ugly, but at the same time, they could not believe it as they stared at the sword gauntlet. They had even counted the floors several times. At this time, Chu Kuangren had indeed stopped at the 49th floor. How is this possible? How can anyone pass the 48th floor? That faceless swordsman is always stronger than his opponents. How can he be defeated? How did he do it? Ling Feng and Murong Yu were unwilling to believe this fact. The other sword cultivators were even more shocked. The 48th floor had been passed. The 48th floor that no one had been able to pass for countless years had been passed. At this moment, they were witnessing history. Chu Kuangren is extraordinary. The 48th floor that no one had been able to pass for countless years has been passed. How did he do it? Even the few sages were a little shocked. Just a moment ago, Chu Kuangren was on the 48th floor. While he was battling the faceless swordsman, he was also thinking about how to pass this floor. However, no matter how he thought about it, he could not come up with any good ideas. He even planned to use his immortal body to spend a few days and nights on this floor. However, suddenly, the faceless swordsman turned into sword chi and dissipated. The staircase that led to the 49th floor appeared in front of him. A sudden realization came to him. It turned out that the condition to pass the 48th floor was not to defeat the faceless swordsman. The faceless swordsman could not be defeated. To pass this floor, one could only rely on one word: perseverance. Enduring the faceless swordsman for 2 hours was considered a pass, but it was too difficult to endure the pressure created by the faceless swordsman for 2 hours. An opponent that could not be killed and was always stronger than one was enough to make any opponent despair, let alone endure for 2 hours. Even a quarter of an hour would be difficult. However, Chu Kuangren did it. The 48th floor is already so difficult. What kind of test is there on the 49th floor? Chu Kwangren was looking forward to it. He walked towards the 49th floor. However, the result was very disappointing. The test on the 49th floor was aimed at one's Taoist core, but the moment one stepped on the floor, it would create all kinds of illusions to confuse one. To be honest, this floor was also very difficult, even more so than the 48th floor. The illusions were incredibly realistic, more realistic than the illusions created by the mental staircase that Chu Kwangren had encountered before. Even a sage would not be able to pass this floor's test. However, for Chu Kwangren, who had the rock-steady Taoist core, all these illusions were like fleeting clouds that did not affect him at all. He did not stay on this floor for long before he reached the 50th floor, which was the last floor of the sword gauntlet. However, he did not know how much of a shock he had caused to the crowd outside the sword gauntlet when he passed the 49th floor so quickly. Although the crowd did not know what kind of test was on the 49th floor, they knew that the 49th floor was undoubtedly more terrifying if the 48th floor was already so difficult. Most of them did not expect Chu Kwangren to pass this floor. They were even guessing how long it would take for him to be transported out. However, they did not expect him to reach the last floor so quickly, which made everyone dumbfounded. What kind of test is on the 49th floor? How could he pass it so quickly? Is it that easy? Easy my asterisk. The sword gauntlet gets harder with each floor, so how could the 49th floor be easy? What's going on? The crowd was puzzled. However, they knew that Chu Kwangren was the only person who had successfully reached the top of the sword gauntlet in countless years. He had made history. Chapter 184. He succeeded in reaching the summit. What kind of fortuitous encounter is within the sword tower? This Chu Kwangren is just too amazing. No one has been able to reach the top of the sword gauntlet for so many years, but he actually succeeded. How did he do it? The sages were shocked. Black Heaven's third forefather, on the other hand, was filled with excitement. Haha, as expected of our Black Heaven sect's lead disciple. You can do what others can't. When the other saints saw this, they could not help but feel jealous. They wished that Chu Kwangren was born in their orthodoxy. On the 50th floor of the sword tower. When Chu Kwangren arrived at the 50th floor, the scenery in front of him changed. What appeared in front of him was a lake. On the shore of the lake, a man wearing a straw raincoat was fishing. Chu Kwangren slowly walked forward and used his eye of revelation to check his opponent's information. What he saw shocked him to the core. Tranquil Heart Great Emperor. An ancient emperor from 220,000 years ago. His current state is that of an emperor's will body. He's skilled in the sword Dao and cultivates. Due to Chu Kwangren's cultivation level, the Eye of Revelation could not analyze much information about the emperor before him. But that didn't stop him from being shocked. Including the doppelganger of Demon Emperor Pride, the mindful emperor before him was the second emperor he had seen. Chu Kwangren stood silently behind him without saying a word. One was fishing while the other was standing still. After a while, "Little guy, why aren't you talking?" The mindful emperor could no longer sit still and asked curiously. Shouldn't he ask who he was first? Chu Kwangren, on the other hand, did not speak a word the moment he arrived. He did not seem to be worried about his current predicament at all. "Senior is fishing, I dare not disturb you." Chu Kwangren chuckled. When he heard this, the mindful emperor was taken aback. That's it? Was he just going to stand there and not say a word? Haha, what an interesting little fellow. Emperor Mindful laughed. He then took off his raincoat and bamboo hat, revealing his full appearance. Chu Kwangren glanced at it and was slightly surprised. Because the appearance of the mindful emperor was exactly the same as the white-clothed man he saw when the Taoist rhyme on the signboard of the sword tower intersected. As expected, the mindful emperor was the owner of the sword tower. And the person who had crossed countless years to discuss the Tao with him was not a saint, but a great emperor. "Little fellow, do you know who I am?" The master of the sword tower. "That's right, this sword tower was indeed left behind by me, and I'm an emperor who attained the Tao during the ancient times. My name is Emperor Ming Xan." Chu Kwangren bowed. "Greetings, Emperor." The mindful emperor was stunned. Why was this junior not shocked at all after hearing that he was a great emperor? His Tao heart was too good, wasn't it? However, He did not know that Chu Kuangren had already figured out his identity. The fact that you're able to arrive at the 50th floor of the Sword Tower means that you're already qualified to receive my inheritance. The mindful emperor chuckled. With a wave of his hand, an ancient scripture appeared before Chu Kuangren. The moment the scripture appeared, waves of mysterious Taoist rhymes circulated, and a vast emperor's aura poured out from it. This is Emperor's scripture.
Oh, you've got quite an eye, little fellow.
Speaking of which, I can sense a different emperor's Taoist rhyme from your body. Have you received another emperor's inheritance before?
I dare not hide it from you. I've indeed received an emperor scripture.
Chu Kuangren was referring to the eternal emperor scripture. However, he had gotten it from the raffle. Oh, which great emperor wrote it? Can you tell me about it? Chu Kuangren pondered for a while. The eternal emperor.
The mindful emperor pondered for a while before a look of surprise appeared in his eyes.
The eternal emperor. I can't believe it's him.
Do you know him, Emperor?
Chu Kuangren was surprised too. He had gotten it from the raffle. Could there really be someone called the eternal emperor? I don't know him, but I've seen him in the ancient books. He's a great emperor from the ancient times. I can't believe you've received his inheritance. The ancient era. Even to the mindful heart emperor, it was an extremely ancient era. He had only read about it in the ancient books. I see. Chu Kuangren nodded.
Deep down, he was thinking, could it be that the items obtained from the raffle are related to this world?
If I have the chance in the future, I'll have to look into this. You've gotten 2 emperor scriptures. Your luck is really impressive.
The mindful emperor was amazed.
Then, he handed the mindful emperor scripture to Chu Kuangren. Besides this emperor scripture, this sword gauntlet is also a treasure.
I'll give it to you as well, the mindful emperor said.
Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up. This sword gauntlet was indeed a treasure. Everything else aside, just the sage techniques recorded in the murals were enough to make any sage orthodoxy go green with envy, not to mention the various uses it had. Thank you, great emperor. By the way, I have a question. The person before me isn't your real body, am I right? Young lad, you've guessed correctly.
The one before you now is just a wisp of my emperor's will, the mindful emperor said. Then where is your real body, great emperor?
Could it be that you've fallen? F***CKU, I'm still alive and kicking.
The mindful emperor rolled his eyes and said angrily.
Chu Kuangren scratched his head. I've been rude.
I can't tell you where I am, or rather, where the emperors recorded in history are.
Once you become an emperor, you'll know everything.
As soon as the mindful emperor finished speaking, the wisp of emperors will began to dissipate.
Chu Kuangren bowed at that. Farewell, great emperor.
Ha, young lad, you're very talented.
I look forward to the day we meet again. I have high hopes for you. The mindful emperor laughed. Chu Kuangren was deep in thought.
Today's meeting with the mindful emperor had benefited him greatly.
Aside from the emperor scripture and the sword gauntlet, he had also learned a shocking secret.
That was, the emperors of old that were recorded in history might not have died, but were still alive somewhere.
That level of secret is not something I can reach now. Chu Kuangren shook his head and stopped thinking about it. After the mindful emperor's will dissipated, the lake suddenly trembled. The fishing rod that the mindful emperor left behind swayed gently, and a pitch-black water dragon flew out from the lake. The water dragon was hundreds of meters long, and its body was covered in black scales. A terrifying, ferocious chi filled the air. The water dragon rolled in the air and let out a series of roars. Upon closer inspection, one would notice that there was a silver thread wrapped around its mouth. The other end of the silver thread was the fishing rod in front of Chu Kuangren. F***CK me, the mindful emperor is fishing for a water dragon. Chu Kuangren was dumbfounded. Others were fishing, but the great emperor was fishing for a water dragon? When he thought about it, it did not seem wrong.
However, the water dragon was glaring at him fiercely.
By the way to control the sword gauntlet is inside the water dragon's body. Young lad, consider this my last test for you.
The mindful emperor's voice rang out again. It was the last wisp of emperor's will left in the fishing rod.
Great emperor, you've tricked me. Chu Kuangren cried as he looked at the water dragon that was charging towards him. Chapter 185. The black water dragon pounced towards Chu Kuangren, its ferocious chi surging like a tsunami.
If it were an ordinary cultivator, they would have been scared out of their wits.
However, Chu Kuangren was no ordinary person. His descendant's self-sword slashed across the sky. An incomparably sharp sword chi crazily surged out, slashing at the flood dragon's body. A large number of scales shattered, and blood spurted out like a fountain.
Roar! With a miserable howl, the intense pain intensified the black flood dragon's murderous aura. It opened its mouth and spat out a black torrent of spirit force.
Chu Kuangren cast the phantom light strike, and his figure disappeared from the spot like a stream of light. When he reappeared, he was already on the right side of the water dragon. He raised his hand and slashed again. Moreover, this sword strike landed precisely on the same spot as before. With a ripping sound, his flesh was torn apart. The black flood dragon was forcibly cut in half and fell back into the lake with a rumble. The waves surged and the flood dragon's blood dyed most of the lake red. On this day, on the 50th floor of the sword gauntlet, Chu Kuangren slayed the evil dragon by the lakeside. Sigh, it's such a shame that no one's here to witness my heroism. Chu Kuangren sighed and sheathed his descendant's self-sword.
At that moment, a golden light rushed out from the black flood dragon's corpse and transformed into a fist-sized pearl that was covered with Dao patterns.
This is... Chu Kuangren was slightly surprised and reached out to grab the bead in his hand. A wave of enlightenment surged into his mind. This is the core of the sword gauntlet. As long as I can refine it, I'll be able to completely control the sword gauntlet. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up. Without delay, he started to refine the core of the sword gauntlet. Outside the sword tower, everyone was staring at the highest level of the sword tower. Once Chu Kuangren reached the final floor, the light had remained there without moving at all. It did not move at all and there was no movement at all. Did Chu Kuangren obtain the opportunities of fortune within the sword gauntlet? Who knows? I've never been to the 50th floor. I'm so anxious. At this moment, the sword tower suddenly shook. What happened? Everyone's expressions changed slightly and they quickly retreated. The sword tower continued to shrink as it trembled. In the end, it turned into a small black tower that hovered in the sky. A speck of light suddenly emerged from the tower. It was Chu Kuangren. It's a success. Chu Kuangren looked at the small tower and smiled in satisfaction. He could now control the sword gauntlet as he pleased. He waved his hand and put the sword tower into his interspatial ring. The crowd could not help but be shocked. Meanwhile, Murong Yu, Ling Hutang, and the other sky prides looked at Chu Kuangren with complicated gazes. The opportunity of fortune of the sword gauntlet was extremely important. At this moment, they could only watch helplessly as this opportunity of fortune fell into Chu Kuangren's hands. How could they be willing? Chu Kuangren, what exactly is the opportunity of fortune inside the sword gauntlet? Ling Huting couldn't help but ask loudly. Oh, is there a need for me to tell you? Chu Kuangren glanced at him and said indifferently. Chu Kuangren, what kind of trick did you use to pass the 48th floor? Murong Yu could not help but ask. Hearing this, everyone was very curious. If I want to pass, I can pass. What tricks do I need? Humph. It's utterly impossible to pass through the 48th level of the sword tower. If you didn't play some tricks, how could you have possibly passed through it? Murong Yu's face was full of disbelief. If you can't pass, then what right do you have to doubt that I can't?
A frog at the bottom of a well can only see so much, Chu Kuangren said indifferently. As soon as he said that, Murong Yu and the others were filled with hatred.
Chu Kuangren, I haven't settled the score with you for destroying my clone. Let's end it here and now. Ling Hutang's tone was cold as he took a step forward.
The sacred sword in his hand suddenly bloomed with an incomparably bright light.
Just as well. A few days ago, Murong Feiyu challenged you to a duel. He wanted to spar with you, but you brutally killed him.
As the young emperor of the Murong clan, I must avenge this grudge.
Murong Yu also unleashed a powerful sword-based Taoist rhyme and locked onto Chu Kuangren, ready to fight him together with Ling Hutang. Shameless. That Murong Feiyu was killed because he tried to sneak up on Lady Lan Yu from behind. He deserved to die. Nangong Huang said coldly. Murong Yu snorted coldly, completely ignoring the truth. He only wanted to deal with Chu Kuangren now. As for Murong Feiyu, it was just an excuse, so he could not care less. Despite the two young emperors joining forces to attack Chu Kuangren did not panic at all. Instead, he looked at Tempest Mountain's Ling Feng, who was not far away, and said, "They've already made their move. Can you still hold back?" Upon hearing that, Ling Feng said coldly, "I don't care about teaming up with others to deal with you. If you want to fight, I'll fight you alone. I advise you to join forces with them. That way, you'll be able to unleash a few more moves and won't lose too badly." "You're too arrogant." Ling Feng gritted his teeth. He knew that he was arrogant enough. All these years, he had challenged many strong swordsman cultivators, from the younger generation to the older generation. However, today, he met someone even more arrogant than him. "Cut the crap. Attack." Ling Huteng was the first to attack. He lifted the sacred sword in his hand, and an extremely majestic sword chi soared into the sky, turning into a tornado-like sword chi that slashed out. Murong Yu had also made his move. He was wielding a sword that looked extremely heavy. With a loud roar, he swung his sword horizontally. The black sword ray was like a crescent moon that streaked across the void and slashed towards Chu Kuangren. Two different sword Dao techniques and two different types of sword-based Daoist rhymes attacked Chu Kuangren at the same time. However, Chu Kuangren did not even bother to dodge. He did not even bother to use his sword. All he did was raise his hand and unleash a palm attack. As his fair, jade-like palm descended, a majestic Daoist rhyme erupted from the center of his palm. Earth chi gathered and turned into an ancient godly mountain. The two sword rays shattered at the same time, and the unparalleled impact spread like a hurricane. Murong Yu and Ling Huteng were both forced back. What a terrifying palm strength! Ling Huteng could not help but be shocked. However, at that moment, a ray of light suddenly appeared in front of him. All he saw was a palm enlarging in front of him before it pressed onto his face. Ling Huteng could only feel his body falling backward uncontrollably. Then, his head smashed onto the ground with a loud bang. The intense pain made him feel as if his head was about to explode. To the others, Ling Huteng's head was pressed onto the ground by Chu Kuangren. With a loud bang, the ground caved in, cracks appeared, and blood splattered everywhere. It made Ling Huteng look extremely miserable. "I've already said that your clone is weak. How strong can your real body be?" Chu Kuangren got up and kicked Ling Huteng, who was like a dead dog, several hundred feet away. Ling Huteng crashed onto a rock wall. Sword Rain Art. Not far away, Murong Yu let out a roar. His Daoist rhyme circulated, and surges of sword chi were unleashed continuously towards Chu Kuangren. Each sword chi had the power to split a mountain, and when these thousands of sword chi converged, it was like a torrent of sword chi. Chu Kuangren still did not dodge. Instead, he took a step forward, and a mysterious Daoist rhyme filled the air as white lotuses formed around him. Countless sword chi landed on the white lotuses, but it did not even cause the slightest ripple. The Daoist rhyme and spiritual power were all easily disintegrated. Just like that, Chu Kuangren withstood the torrent of sword chi and walked step by step towards Murong Yu. Under Murong Yu's horrified gaze, Chu Kuangren raised his hand and struck out with his palm, sending Murong Yu flying. "Weak. You're really too weak. So weak that I can't even feel motivated." Chapter 186. Chu Kuangren stood where he was and looked at Ling Huteng and Murong Yu, who were lying on the ground with disappointment in his eyes. "Weak. Too weak. I can't even muster up the energy to fight you two like this." The other sword cultivators around him gulped in shock when they saw how easily Chu Kuangren suppressed Ling Huteng and Murong Yu. Chu Kuangren's combat strength is too terrifying. Yeah, he's inhuman. Ling Huteng, whose head was bleeding, slowly raised his head and stared at the white-robed figure not far away. His eyes were filled with a strong sense of unwillingness. How can he be so strong? D***. Not far away, Murong Yu, who was sent flying, leaped into the air with bloodshot eyes. Rays of light flowed around his body and condensed into an ancient mysterious rune that exuded a strong Daoist rhyme. Chu Kuangren's interest was piqued when he saw the rune. A sage boundary sword talisman. Interesting. The so-called runes were simplified forms of the power of heaven and earth by observing the ubiquitous Daoist veins between heaven and earth. There were thousands of runes in the world, each with their own mysteries. Sword talismans were runes related to sword Dao and could enhance a sword cultivator's strength.
The higher the grade of the sword talisman, the more power it could enhance. In this world, an exalted talisman was extremely rare, let alone a quasi-saint grade sword talisman. With the help of the Sage Boundary Sword Talisman, Murong Yu's sword chi was greatly enhanced and an unparalleled Taoist rhyme erupted.
Chu Kuangren, take this.
Murong Yu's roar was like thunder as he slashed with the sacred sword in his hand. Thousands of sword chi swept out and intertwined to form a terrifying giant python that could devour the heavens and earth. It let out an ear-piercing roar as it charged towards Chu Kuangren.
Chu Kuangren slowly raised his hand against the attack.
The 5 supreme foundation levels in his body shone brightly and his spiritual power surged like a tsunami. He did not draw his sword but instead struck out with his palm. The majestic power of the godly mountain erupted in an instant and the giant python that was formed from intertwining sword chi was easily shattered. The impact from the collision between the sword chi and palm energy spread. Murong Yu was the first to be hit, and he was sent flying like a kite with a broken string. Even after using a boundary sage grade rune, he was still no match for Chu Kuangren. He still did not have the right to make Chu Kuangren draw his sword. The 2 young emperors of swordsmanship had been utterly defeated.
Then, Chu Kuangren looked at Tempest Mountain's Ling Feng.
This young emperor of the sword Dao, who was known as the lunatic swordsman by others and was extremely obsessed with swords, was frozen on the spot. He stared at Chu Kuangren with trembling eyes.
It was too terrifying.
Even he would not be able to defeat Murong Yu and Ling Huting as easily as Chu Kuangren. Moreover, his opponent did not even draw his sword. He did not use his full strength at all. Without a doubt, his opponent was much stronger than him. As I said, if you attack together with them, you can attack a few more times.
Now, I think you only have one chance.
Attack. Let me see the ultimate sword art of Tempest Mountain,
Chu Kuangren said indifferently.
Ling Feng clenched the sword in his hand tightly. His body trembled slightly, but he did not draw his sword. He was actually afraid.
I told you to draw your sword.
Chu Kuangren shouted coldly as if he was scolding a child. As he said that, the sword-based Taoist rhyme emanated from his body and surged out like a tsunami, crushing Ling Feng in a frenzy. Under the lock of this sword-based Taoist rhyme, Ling Feng could not even move his finger, let alone draw his sword.
No, this is impossible. I'm the Tempest Mountain's pride.
How can I not even draw my sword in front of him? At least I can draw my sword. With that thought in mind, Ling Feng gritted his teeth and slowly pulled out the long sword in his hand. He raised it high and a surge of sword-based Taoist rhyme emanated from it. The sword chi swirled and formed an illusory sword shadow above his head. Under the suppression of Chu Kuangren's Taoist rhyme, Ling Feng's sword shadow trembled continuously as if it would collapse at any moment.
Very well, draw your sword,
Chu Kuangren said calmly, but his sword-based Taoist rhyme continued to strengthen.
Oh!
When Ling Feng felt the even more terrifying Taoist rhyme, he let out a frenzied roar. However, the sword shadow above his head did not descend.
Everyone was terrified when they saw that.
To be able to force lunatic swordsmen to such a state, what kind of terrifying pressure was that?
Draw your sword, draw your sword,
Ling Feng roared in his heart. However, under the suppression of Chu Kuangren's Taoist rhyme, both his hand and his sword were trembling. It was even harder for the sword shadow to descend.
Sigh, in the end, you still can't break through your limits.
The so-called lunatic swordsman is only this much.
Chu Kuangren shook his head.
The violent sword-based Taoist rhyme erupted once again. Under the impact of this Taoist rhyme, the illusory sword shadow was completely shattered. Finally, Ling Feng could not hold on any longer and collapsed onto the ground. In the end, he could not even draw his sword.
I've lost.
Lunatic swordsman slumped onto the ground with a dejected look on his face. He felt a huge sense of defeat. When the surrounding sword cultivators saw that, they felt that the scene before them was too unbelievable. The mighty lunatic swordsman was suppressed to the point where he could not even draw his sword.
Isn't this a little too frightening?
Lunatic swordsman's strength is definitely stronger than Murong Yu and Ling Huting. Yet he's being suppressed to the point where he can't even draw his sword. It seems that Chu Kuangren did not use his full strength when he fought against Murong Yu and Ling Huting. I even suspect that he did not use half of his strength. Oh my god, this Chu Kuangren is just too abnormal.
He's a monster.
I don't believe it, I don't believe it. Ling Hutang propped himself up and roared in a frenzy. He channeled his spiritual power and wanted to fight again. However, at that moment, a vast domineering aura descended from the sky. Apart from Chu Kuangren, all the sword cultivators at the scene were suppressed. Those with weaker cultivations were immediately sprawled on the ground, unable to move. That was the sage aura. In the sky, 4 figures appeared. They were the sages of the one mountain, one sect, and 2 families. However, 3 of them did not look at Chu Kuangren in a friendly manner. After all, their sky prides had been dealt a terrible blow by Chu Kuangren. Their Taoist core might even be affected when they returned. What's wrong? Are you guys planning to attack a junior? At that moment, Black Heaven's third forefather said. The other 3 sages retracted their gazes. They knew that this was a battle between sky prides. If they were to attack, the nature of the battle would change completely, and it might even trigger a war between orthodoxies. However, watching Chu Kuangren grow stronger and stronger before their eyes, especially when he was a member of the Black Heaven sect, made them feel bad. Let's stop, the Tempest Mountain sage said. He then looked at Chu Kuangren and asked, Young friend, may I ask what kind of opportunities of fortune are inside the sword gauntlet? Not only him, but the other sages were also very curious. The opportunities of fortune inside the sword gauntlet had been hidden for so long that no one knew about it for countless years. Now that someone had finally obtained this opportunities of fortune, the sages were still itching to get their hands on it. Kuangren, you don't have to say it. As long as I'm here, no one can force you. At that moment, Black Heaven's third forefather said to Chu Kuangren. Yes, third forefather. Chu Kuangren nodded. Brother third Taoist, don't you think that's a little unkind of you? We're just asking, it's not like we're trying to steal it. Is there a need to hide it from us? Third forefather Ling Hu frowned and said, Humph, it's up to us whether to tell you or not. So what? Are you going to force us if we don't tell you? Black Heaven's third forefather said indifferently. You! Third forefather Ling Hu gritted his teeth in anger, but there was nothing he could do. Chapter 187. The opportunity of fortune of the sword gauntlet was taken by Chu Kuangren, but the rest of the sword cultivators were devastated. Some of them even lost interest in practicing their swordsmanship. It was too tragic. Compared to Chu Kuangren, what was the point of practicing their swordsmanship? Other than a few people who stayed in the hidden sword canyon to observe the sword scars, most of the sword cultivators, including the One Mountain and 2 clans, had left. Boss Chen, we'll meet again. Brother Chu, have a safe journey. Chen Fugue laughed. He had been in contact with Chu Kuangren for the past few days. Although they were not exactly friends, they were at least on good terms. Looking at Chu Kuangren's departing figure, Chen Fugue smiled. This trip to the hidden sword canyon was really worth it. A green figure appeared behind Chen Fugue. Boss, you've been in contact with Chu Kuangren for the past few days. Are you trying to befriend him? Da! Then why didn't you just reveal your identity? Why don't you understand? It's important to be honest when making friends. The green figure rolled his eyes. Boss, why are you befriending him? You know very well that you're just interested in his identity and potential, right? You still have the nerve to talk about being honest? That's too fake. Shut up. I'm your boss. How dare you talk back to me? Yes. Boss is right. The green figure had no choice but to follow Chen Fugue's lead. Chen Fugue looked at Chu Kuangren's departing figure and rubbed the white jade ring on his thumb. There are too many investment opportunities in this era of great battles, and Chu Kuangren is definitely worth investing in. It won't go wrong to build a good relationship with him. What an emperor's scripture! On the ferry boat, Black Heaven's third forefather could not help but exclaim when he heard that the opportunity of fortune in the sword gauntlet was an emperor's inheritance. An emperor's scripture was too valuable. Even a sage would be jealous of it. Luckily you didn't say it out loud. Otherwise, who knows if those 3 old men would start a war just to get it. An emperor's scripture is too scary. Black Heaven's third forefather said in relief. Kuangren, you have a lot of luck, but the emperor's scripture is too important. You mustn't tell anyone else. Otherwise, even the Black Heaven sect will not be able to protect you. Black Heaven's third forefather said solemnly. Chu Kuangren's heart skipped a beat. After all,
He had the backing of 3 sage orthodoxies. If even they could not protect Chu Kuangren, he would not be able to do so. In that case, what kind of power would they be facing? Kuangren, this world is not as simple as it seems on the surface. Sage orthodoxies are not necessarily the strongest forces. There are many unknowns and unknowns in this world. Black Heaven's third forefather said meaningfully. Unknown things, unknown lands. Chu Kuangren murmured before he nodded. I understand. Study the imperial scripture well and strive to become an emperor in the future. Only then will you not be afraid of anyone or anything. Yes, third patriarch. Soon, everyone returned to the Black Heaven sect. When Honorable Xian Qi found out that Chu Kuangren had obtained the opportunity of fortune from the sword gauntlet, he was extremely pleased. I knew you could do it, Kuangren. Other than Kuangren, no one else can take the sword tower's fortuitous encounter. Elder Ruyan said with a smile. That's right, what is that opportunity? One of the elders asked curiously. At that moment, Black Heaven's third forefather's voice came from the void. No one is allowed to ask about the opportunity of fortune in the sword gauntlet. Everyone looked at each other, and then revealed a look of contemplation. Chu Kuangren smiled apologetically at the crowd. Lead disciple, don't overthink it. Since the sage has spoken, we will obey. We will not ask about the opportunity of fortune anymore. Not bad. The opportunity of fortune is precious. It would be bad if it attracted the attention of others. The fewer people who know about it, the better. The few elders expressed their understanding. All right, Kuangren, the trip to the sword gauntlet has been tough. Go back and rest. You still have to attend the inauguration ceremony in half a month. Yes, what? Just as Chu Kuangren was about to leave, he suddenly regained his senses and asked, what inauguration ceremony? Of course it's the inauguration ceremony where you take over the position of sect leader. Chu Kuangren only remembered when he heard that. Honorable teacher, are you really not going to reconsider? Look at all the elders here. Which one of them isn't more suitable than me? Can't you just pick one of them? Hey, lead disciple, you can't just say things like that. Besides you, who else is qualified to take over the position of sect leader? Yes, it has to be you. Kuangren, just accept it. The few elders laughed. Surprisingly, none of them objected. Chu Kuangren wanted to cry but no tears came out. Do you guys think so highly of me? Kuangren, look, all the elders have unanimously agreed that the position of sect leader belongs to you. You have to accept it. I'm already a boundary sage now, so I need to hide behind the scenes and accumulate the resources to become a sage. Honorable Xian Qi patted Chu Kuangren on the shoulder. You don't have to worry about it affecting your cultivation. There are a few elders who will help you with the management. You just need to make some decisions on the bigger issues. Other times, you can just be a sect leader who doesn't have to do anything. Back in the day, that's how I went through it. As Honorable Xian Qi spoke of his experience, the mouths of the few elders beside him twitched. They wanted to slap him in the face. Damn it, you're so comfortable being a sect leader who doesn't have to do anything. We were all exhausted to the point of exhaustion. All right, honorable teacher, I understand. Chu Kuangren saw that the faces of the few elders, including the beautiful elder Ruyan, had turned as black as the bottom of a pot. He quickly interrupted Honorable Xian Qi, who was still bragging. If he was one step late, he was afraid that this honorable teacher of his would be beaten to death. It's good that you've thought it through. Being a sect leader is actually quite easy. Honorable Xian Qi smiled in satisfaction and continued to tease the nerves of the few elders. Kuangren, you should go back first. We need to discuss some matters regarding the inauguration ceremony with your honorable teacher. Elder Ruyan smiled gently. Yes. Chu Kuangren felt his scalp tingle. He gave Honorable Xian Qi a look of good luck before bowing and retreating. When he left, Chu Kuangren considerately closed the palace door. Then, he heard some screams coming from inside. Didn't we already agree on the inauguration ceremony? Why? Fourth elder, what's wrong with you? Why did you hit me? *CK me. What are you guys doing? You're a sect leader who doesn't have to do anything, right? You're speaking from experience, right? You bastard Xian Qi. Do you know how much white hair I've gotten from overseeing the Internal Affairs Division all these years? You're quite happy, aren't you? Hit him. Hey, stop. Elder Ruyan, I was wrong, don't pinch me.
Hiss. Kwangren, save me.
Outside the palace door, Chu Kwangren shuddered and bowed towards the palace door. Honorable teacher, please forgive me for being unfilial. I can't help you anymore. He sighed and quickly turned around to leave. Back at the Taoist palace, Lan Yu and Lil Bing were looking at a piece of clothing. Hey, what are you guys looking at?
Master, you're back.
These are the clothes that the Internal Affairs Division just sent over. They're for you to wear during the inauguration ceremony. Lil Bing walked forward with the clothes in her arms. Chu Kwangren glanced at them. Wow, the materials used for the clothes were all high-end goods. These clothes alone were worth at least 1 million soul stones. Chapter 188. There was still half a month before the inauguration ceremony. As a Sage Orthodoxy's inauguration ceremony, it would not be too shabby. According to tradition, Honorable Xian Qi had sent out many invitations to the various Sage Orthodoxies to attend the ceremony. The news that Chu Kwangren was about to take over the Black Heaven sect leader position had spread throughout the firmament star. Everyone from the major forces was shocked. What kind of joke was this? How old was Chu Kwangren now? How could he take over the Black Heaven sect? That was insane. Was he strong enough? Was he prestigious enough? Was he experienced enough? However, when they thought about it, they realized that Chu Kwangren's strength was enough to kill an honorable supreme. His prestige was so high that his name was known throughout the world. As for experience, there were plenty of people in the Black Heaven sect who were experienced. F***CK. Everyone realized that Chu Kwangren was indeed qualified to lead the Black Heaven sect. All of a sudden, everyone from the Sage Orthodoxies was dumbfounded. This was especially true for the Sky Prides, who had mixed feelings. While they were still fighting, Chu Kwangren was about to become the sect leader of a Sage Orthodoxy. His status was much higher than theirs.
How old is he?
I think he's not even 20. F***CK me, a 20-year-old Sage Orthodoxy sect leader? I don't think there are many like that in the past and present. I have a feeling that under Chu Kwangren's leadership, the Black Heaven sect is about to enter a new era. Honorable Xian Qi and the others are really daring to hand over an entire orthodoxy to a young man who's not even 20 years old. How bold.
This Chu Kwangren is really something.
The outside world was in an uproar because of the news that Chu Kwangren was about to take over the Black Heaven sect leader position. However, Chu Kwangren did not care about any of that at all. He was currently studying the Emperor Scripture. The Mindful Emperor Scripture that he obtained from the Sword Gauntlet. This was the second Emperor Scripture that he had studied. With the experience of studying the Longevity Emperor Scripture, he was more familiar with it. He did not have to worry about accidentally getting lost in it and going into closed-door meditation for a few years. He realized that compared to the Longevity Emperor Scripture, the Mindful Emperor Scripture was slightly less profound. Emperors were divided into strong and weak ones, and naturally, Emperor Scriptures were also divided into different grades. Although it was not as good as the Eternal Emperor Scripture, the Mindful Emperor Scripture was still an Emperor Scripture, and it would be of great help to Chu Kwangren. As the two Emperor Scriptures verified each other, Chu Kwangren's Tao technique realm improved a little, and the results were gratifying. What surprised Chu Kwangren even more was that there was an Emperor technique recorded in the Mindful Emperor Scripture that would be of great help to his current Sword Tao. Sword Qi Transformation. This technique can condense the Sword Qi into doppelgangers to attack. When mastered, the Sword Qi can be split into millions. One person can be an army. Chu Kwangren looked at the Emperor technique recorded in the Mindful Emperor Scripture. He yearned for this Emperor technique so much that he could not wait to master it. In fact, there was also an Emperor technique in the Eternal Emperor Scripture. However, that Emperor technique was a recovery-type Emperor technique. It was not very useful to Chu Kwangren, who had an immortal body, so he did not delve too deeply into it. However, the Sword Qi transformation technique was different. To Chu Kwangren, who was an expert in Sword Tao, it would be a great help. Through this Emperor technique, Chu Kwangren could even improve his heaven-slaying sword drawing technique further. Chu Kwangren began to comprehend the Sword Qi transformation technique. Time flew, and 10 days passed. There were still 3 days before the inauguration ceremony. Today was the day.
Chu Kuangren suddenly felt a vibration in his yin and yang ring. He came out of his Emperor Technique enlightenment state and probed it with his senses. It's this little guy. Chu Kuangren was a little surprised. The vibration in his yin and yang ring came from the godly phoenix egg. The godly phoenix egg had absorbed countless treasures during this period of time. Some of them were from others, and some were from the Gacha roulette. Today, it was finally going to hatch. Why did you have to do it now? You sure know how to pick the right time. Chu Kuangren shook his head helplessly. However, the egg's head was already out. He could not possibly stuff it back in, could he? There are still 3 days left. I should be able to make it in time, Chu Kuangren said. Then, he stood up and turned into a ray of light. Where are you going, master? I don't know. Lil Bing and Lan Yu looked at each other, puzzled. Chu Kuangren did not bring anyone with him. He turned into a ray of light and flew into the distance. He wanted to find a suitable place for the godly phoenix egg to hatch. Soon, Chu Kuangren arrived at the mouth of a volcano. There was a large amount of lava in the mouth of the volcano, and an extremely rich fire-based Taoist rhyme permeated the air. He took out the godly phoenix egg and hesitated. Will it burn the egg if I just throw it in? The godly phoenix egg vibrated gently, revealing an extremely joyful emotion. It seemed to be very satisfied with the place. If that's the case, I'll do it here. Chu Kuangren no longer hesitated and immediately threw the godly phoenix egg into the mouth of the volcano. All he needed to do now was to wait. Another 2 days passed. Chu Kuangren noticed that the fire-based Taoist rhyme in the volcano was getting thinner as if it had been absorbed by the godly phoenix egg. This little guy's appetite is too big, Chu Kuangren murmured. Apart from that, he also sensed an extremely mysterious and vigorous Taoist rhyme that was gradually spreading out in the air. It was the godly phoenix's Taoist rhyme. The Taoist rhyme was so strong that it even attracted many beasts nearby, hoping to devour the godly phoenix and evolve. Hiss! A giant python crawled over from afar. Its lantern-sized eyes stared intently at the mouth of the volcano. Its instincts told it that there was a great opportunity of fortune inside. As long as it could obtain it, it would transform into a dragon today. At that thought, the giant python was so excited that its scales were trembling. However, when it arrived at the mouth of the volcano, it saw a person. A white-robed young man was sitting cross-legged at the mouth of the volcano. The flying volcanic ash around him did not touch the young man at all. Danger! The giant python felt a sense of danger from this young man. It was not just the giant python. Some other beasts were also heading towards the mouth of the volcano. Those who dared to covet the godly phoenix were all extremely powerful beings. Not only did they have a noble bloodline, but the weakest among them had a cultivation base of at least the honorable realm. Now, these beasts had gathered together and were all staring at the mouth of the volcano, their eyes filled with desire. However, with Chu Kuangren around, they dared not act rashly. If this goes on, the being in the mouth of the volcano will come out soon. When that happens, we won't have a chance anymore. A giant ape with red fur all over its body said in a deep voice. I don't care anymore. I can't hold it in anymore. That volcano definitely has the aura of some kind of ancient remnant. If I devour it, my bloodline will definitely evolve. The giant python could not hold it in anymore. With a look of desire in its eyes, the giant python crawled towards the mouth of the volcano. I can't take it anymore. I want to go too. There's only one human. There's nothing to be afraid of. How can we miss such a great opportunity of fortune? One by one, the beasts began to move. Even though they knew that Chu Kuangren was not as simple as he seemed, they still could not hold back the Taoist rhyme from the godly phoenix's egg. It was a desire for a higher level of life. They wanted to evolve. Meanwhile, Chu Kuangren, who had been sitting at the mouth of the volcano, noticed the movements of the beasts and slowly stood up as well. A terrifying Taoist rhyme erupted from that seemingly frail body of his. It was as if the entire world was about to collapse and shatter. Chapter 189. If all of you had stayed put, I wouldn't have bothered with you. But if you want to touch my offspring now, you're asking for it. Chu Kuangren said indifferently. Next to him, the descendant's self-sword that had been stuck in the ground all this while trembled slightly before a sword ray shot out and slashed at one of the beasts. Without any suspense, the demonic beast was unable to resist this sword light and was directly torn in half.
Go. Don't be afraid, he's alone. Once we devour that ancient remnant beast, we'll be able to evolve. Now, we just need to get rid of this obstacle. Kill. None of the beasts were willing to give up on the godly phoenix egg. The giant python was the first to rush out.
It opened its mouth wide, and its throat began to emit a blazing light before it spat out a stream of boiling lava.
Chu Kuangren raised his hand and unleashed a palm attack. With a loud boom, an unparalleled majestic Taoist rhyme turned into a godly mountain and crushed it.
The boiling lava was dispersed, and the power of the godly mountain directly smashed onto the giant python's head, almost smashing half of its head into pieces.
Go to hell. The giant ape leaped high into the air, clenched its fist, and smashed towards Chu Kuangren like a meteor. Ignorant. Chu Kuangren said indifferently. With a casual slap, the horrifying giant ape was sent flying thousands of meters away and crashed into a forest. However, despite his unparalleled combat strength, the beasts had long been mesmerized by the godly phoenix egg's aura. Their eyes were bloodshot, and they fearlessly charged towards Chu Kuangren. Just in time, let's try this sword chi transformation technique. Chu Kuangren murmured.
A powerful surge of Taoist rhyme erupted from his body, and a large amount of sword chi seeped out of his body before intertwining in the air to form a human figure.
This person looked exactly like Chu Kuangren. All the beasts were dumbfounded. What kind of technique was this? However, what happened next shocked them even more. The sword chi on Chu Kuangren's body flowed and turned into 2, then 4. Including the real Chu Kuangren, there were a total of 5.
Each of them had a terrifying sword-based Taoist rhyme, so the beasts could not tell which one was the real Chu Kuangren.
Destroy these beasts. Chu Kuangren's real body said. 4 sword chi clones rushed out from 4 different directions, holding swords condensed from sword chi in their hands. Wherever they went, sword chi danced, tearing apart demonic beasts one after another, turning them into souls of the dead. Chu Kuangren walked to the side of a large rock, patted the dust off it, and sat down.
Then, he rested his chin on his hand as he watched the massacre unfold before him.
The strength of the sword chi clone is determined by the strength of the sword chi.
With my current mastery of the sword chi transformation technique, I can create a clone with 80% of my strength. And the more there are, the more scattered the sword chi will be, and the weaker the power of the clones will be.
4 sword chi clones, each with half of my strength, should be enough to deal with these demonic beasts. Chu Kuangren nodded in satisfaction at his clone's performance. The mindful emperor's sword chi transformation technique was extremely terrifying. If Chu Kuangren could master it to its peak, he could even create a sword chi clone with the same power level as him. Apart from that, the sword chi doppelganger could also take on various forms. For example, it could transform into a demonic beast or any other person. Otherwise, it would not be called the sword chi transformation technique. The faceless swordsman and the sword chi beasts that Chu Kuangren encountered in the sword gauntlet were also created with reference to the sword chi transformation technique. Roar!
With a roar, a demonic beast covered in pitch-black scales that looked like a ferocious tiger pounced on one of the sword chi clones.
The sword chi clone unleashed a slash, and the piercing sword chi blasted the beast away. However, it was unable to kill the ferocious tiger beast. The scales on my body are extremely tough. Your sword chi can't hurt me at all. The ferocious tiger beast roared at the sword chi clone. However, the clone did not have any emotions, and there was no change in its expression. Not far away, Chu Kuangren saw this scene and rubbed his chin as if he was thinking about something. Then, he took out the sacred emerald sword case. He tapped on the sword case, and it slowly opened. A pitch-black long sword suddenly flew out, piercing through the demonic beast horde and arriving in front of the sword chi clone. It was the Troop Breaker Ominous Sword. The sword chi clone grabbed the Troop Breaker Ominous Sword and infused it with sword chi. An extremely ferocious aura emanated from it, and its combat strength increased. What? The ferocious tiger beast's eyes widened. Not only can it create clones, but it can also use weapons? Moreover, one could tell that the weapon was extremely powerful. This is clearly a shameless act. However, the sword chi clone did not think too much about it. After obtaining the Troop Breaker Ominous Sword, it attacked again. This time, with the Troop Breaker Ominous Sword in hand, the ferocious tiger beast's scales were no longer a hindrance, and it was easily torn apart.
In just a few moves, the ferocious tiger beast was easily slain. Not far away, Chu Kuangren tapped on the sword case a few more times, and another 3 treasured swords flew out, which were then caught by the other 3 sword chi clones. Every treasured sword in the sword case was a weapon that countless sword cultivators dreamed of owning. Now that they were wielded by the sword chi clones, the terrifying sword chi was unleashed to the fullest, and the efficiency of killing the beasts was even higher. This sacred emerald sword case and the sword chi clones are a perfect match. Chu Kuangren thought to himself. If he had enough treasured swords in the future, he could create hundreds of sword chi clones, each wielding a sacred sword or a supreme sword. How spectacular would that scene be? This was no joke. If Chu Kuangren wanted swords, he did not need to go to Sword Prayer City to find someone to forge them. There was a huge pile of swords on the Black Heaven Sect's Sword Mountain. The 4 sword chi clones and the 4 treasured swords were like 4 unstoppable killing gods, and the beasts were harvested like weeds. Not long after, the ground was filled with the corpses of countless beasts. The air was filled with the pungent smell of blood, and violent energy turbulence was everywhere. The scene was a mess. Seeing this, Chu Kuangren raised his hand and activated the gluttonous devouring technique, absorbing all the beasts into the avarice dimension and refining them into pure spiritual power. The flesh and blood essence of these beasts were comparable to a few honorable supremes, and it was enough to increase Chu Kuangren's cultivation level. At that moment, the entire volcano suddenly shook. A terrifying Taoist rhyme emanated from within the volcano, and the surviving beasts seemed to have felt something as their eyes became filled with fear. An ancient aura that came from their bloodline made them involuntarily kneel on the ground, and their bodies trembled. Ugh! A piercing cry came from within the volcano, piercing through the clouds. Then, a blood-red godly phoenix rushed out of the volcano along with waves of rays of light and soared into the sky. Waves of Taoist rhyme filled the air, shaking the heavens and earth. The head of a chicken, the jaw of a swallow, the neck of a snake, the back of a turtle, the tail of a fish. It was the image of the legendary phoenix. As the godly phoenix soared in the sky, all the flying beasts in the firmament star sensed it and unconsciously let out a long cry in the direction of the godly phoenix, as if they were congratulating the birth of the divine beast. At that moment, all birds were paying homage to the godly phoenix. At that moment, the heavens and earth were celebrating. Chu Kuangren looked at the godly phoenix and could not help but sigh. This little guy has finally hatched. Besides, TSK, as expected of a divine beast, this display is different. Chapter 190. When the godly phoenix appeared, all living beings in the world could sense it. In an instant, the entire firmament star was shaken. After all, it was a divine beast. One had to know that divine beasts like dragons and divine phoenixes only existed in legends. Every single one of them was incomparably precious. Even in ancient times, they were extremely rare. As long as a divine beast did not die, it would at least become an emperor in the future. If one could tame it, it would be a great help to a cultivator. At that moment, many great ones were searching for divine beasts, especially those who were good at divination techniques. They wanted to deduce the godly phoenix's location. On a certain mountain peak, the divine predictor, who was dressed in plain clothes, was deducing the godly phoenix's location. His Taoist rhymes circulated, and a mysterious power of divination appeared. In his hand was a bronze mirror. The mirror was shrouded in clouds and mist, and it contained a powerful power of divination. After a long time, the clouds in the mirror still did not dissipate. The divine predictor shook his head. Divine beasts are blessed by the heavens and earth, and their fate is even more noble than the emperors of old. It's difficult to deduce. If even he was like that, it was needless to say for the others. All the great ones who wanted to deduce the godly phoenix's location had failed. On top of the volcano, the immortal godly phoenix appeared and soared in the sky. Her gorgeous and beautiful figure exuded waves of extraordinary Taoist rhymes. Finally, the godly phoenix landed in front of Chu Kuangren and rubbed her furry head against him, expressing her joy and intimacy. Chu Kuangren patted her head and activated his eye of revelation to check the godly phoenix's information before him. The immortal godly phoenix is the ruler of the phoenix tribe. It has an honorable cultivation level and possesses the divine abilities, the essence of myriad flames, and the nirvana flames. According to the information provided by the eye of revelation, Chu Kuangren could not help but sigh. As expected of a godly phoenix, Its cultivation level was already an honorable the moment it was born.
This child that I hatched has a higher cultivation level than me? At that thought, Chu Kuangren sweated. It really is the godly phoenix. At that moment, a surprised voice came from the distant sky. An old man in Taoist robes came flying from afar. This old man had a horse-like face and deep eye sockets, giving off an eerie vibe.
The old man was overjoyed when he saw the divine phoenix.
I never thought that I would encounter such a great opportunity on this trip. If I can subdue this divine phoenix, I will be able to do as I please in the firmament dome.
This old man had been nearby and immediately rushed over when he sensed the birth of the divine phoenix. He could tell that this godly phoenix had just been born and its cultivation was only at the honorable realm.
It was a far cry from a quasi-sage like him. The chances of him subduing this divine phoenix were very high. However, he soon noticed Chu Kuangren beside him. He could not help but be surprised when he saw Chu Kuangren's otherworldly appearance and temperament. When he saw how close the divine phoenix was to him, his heart skipped a beat. Could the divine phoenix have already been subdued?
Thinking of this, his eyes burst out a wisp of killing intent.
The divine phoenix had to be his. Young friend, may I know which orthodoxy you're from? The old man in Taoist robes slowly approached Chu Kuangren with a smile on his face. However, his appearance was not flattering at all. Even when he was smiling, he gave off a gloomy feeling. Chu Kuangren activated his eye of revelation and looked at the old man in front of him. Master Taoist Withered Cloud, one of the protectors of the sacred palace of death. His cultivation level is at the boundary sage realm, and he cultivates the sage techniques, Withered Shadow Seal, Great Earth Mountain Scorched Palm. Huh? A protector of the sacred palace of death. This sacred palace of death again. Chu Kuangren was a little surprised. The black light sage that he had killed in the luminous moon sage's secret realm was also a protector of this sacred palace. What kind of force is this? Chu Kuangren had only met two people. One was a sage, and the other was a boundary sage. This kind of background is just too terrifying. Even a sage orthodoxy would not be able to match up to them. That orthodoxy is not important. What's important is that you don't come near me anymore, Master Taoist. Looking at your face makes me a little nervous. Don't be afraid, young friend. I may look scary, but I'm definitely a good person. Master Taoist Withered Cloud smiled. At the same time, a great chi was condensing on his hand that was facing away from Chu Kuangren. A fierce look flashed across his eyes, and he suddenly attacked. However, someone was faster than him. Behind him, 4 sword rays were flying towards him from 4 different directions. What? Master Taoist Withered Cloud was a little surprised. His palm attack that was originally aimed at Chu Kuangren was now aimed at the incoming sword rays. When the sword rays collided with the palm energy, a terrifying force swept out, and the 4 sword chi clones could not help but be pushed back a few hundred meters. Chu Kuangren seized the opportunity to raise his sword and unleash a slash. A majestic sword-based Taoist rhyme locked onto Master Taoist Withered Cloud, and the sword slashed onto his back. A terrifying sword chi erupted, and even a boundary sage's body was almost torn in half by that attack. Ah! With a scream, Master Taoist Withered Cloud was sent flying. When the godly phoenix saw that, she did not need Chu Kuangren's order. Instead, she opened her mouth and spat out a ball of golden flames at Master Taoist Withered Cloud. The flames were so hot that even light was distorted wherever they passed. D****. Master Taoist Withered Cloud was a boundary sage after all. With a loud roar, a great chi of death erupted and collided with the flames. He landed on the ground. His entire body was almost cut in half by Chu Kuangren's sword attack, and wisps of grey chi escaped from his body. Master Taoist Withered Cloud took out a life-saving pill that he had kept for many years and swallowed it, which temporarily stopped his injuries from worsening. Kid, I'm going to skin you alive. Master Taoist Withered Cloud roared. He no longer pretended to be courteous. At the same time, he was also very shocked. After all, he had transcended the heavenly tribulation and ascended to a boundary sage. Coupled with the nourishment of the death chi, his body had long transformed. Even if he stood still, an ordinary honorable's attack would not be able to hurt him. Yet, he was severely injured by Chu Kuangren's sword attack. If he did not have the life-saving pill, he might even die.
Where did this terrifying sky pride come from? If you want to skin me alive, why don't you try? A hint of disgust flashed across Chu Kuangren's eyes when he saw the chi of death that was seeping out from his opponent's body. He did not like that aura at all. The four sword chi clones charged towards Master Taoist Withered Cloud. When they channeled their sword chi, it was as if four honorables were joining forces. Master Taoist Withered Cloud was shocked. These are clones? Why are there so many of them? What kind of technique is this? Cloning techniques were extremely rare, let alone so many at once. Master Taoist Withered Cloud had never heard of it before. Get out of my way! Master Taoist Withered Cloud was a boundary sage after all. Even if he was severely injured by Chu Kuangren's sword attack, his combat strength was still extremely terrifying. He unleashed a palm attack, and the chi of death surged out like a tidal wave. The four sword chi clones instantly crumbled under such power. The four long swords fell to the ground with a clang. Die. Master Taoist Withered Cloud channeled the chi of death in his body and unleashed a palm attack. A black flame burned and emanated an eerie and domineering Taoist rhyme. Chu Kuangren then slapped the sword case in front of him, and 8 long swords flew out from it. They carried a mysterious Taoist rhyme and majestic sword chi that forced Master Taoist rhyme to retreat. The 4 long swords that fell to the ground also rose into the air and resonated with the other long swords, forming a shocking sword formation. Today, I'll use a boundary sage like you to test out the power of the 4-season sword formation, Chu Kuangren said indifferently while holding the sword case in one hand. Chapter 191. The 12 swords hovered in the air, forming a shocking sword formation. Waves of mysterious Taoist rhymes descended from the sky, enveloping an area of a few miles and trapping Taoist Withered Cloud. The second stage of the 4-season sword formation, the 12-moon sword formation. This is a sword formation. Brat, I didn't expect you to have so many tricks up your sleeves. But, you're just a combat king warrior. Even if you have a sword formation, what can you possibly do to me? Break! Taoist Withered Cloud growled. Then, he raised his hand and a gloomy and overbearing Taoist rhyme erupted. Black flames surged in all directions. However, the Taoist rhymes of the sword array circulated, and a piercingly cold sword chi whizzed out like a cold wind in the cold winter. Under this sword chi, the black flames were continuously disintegrating. Playing with fire, huh? Chu Kuangren chuckled. The Taoist rhyme in the sword formation changed, and a huge sun suddenly rose up. As the light shone, rays of sword chi intertwined to form a sea of fire that surged out, burning Old Man Ku Yun's face. What sword array is this? It's actually so powerful. Old Man Ku Yun was frightened. He had seen his fair share of formations, but he had never seen a sword formation controlled by a Battle King warrior force him to such a degree. Just like the doppelganger technique, this sword formation shocked him. All of these abilities were beyond his comprehension. How could a combat king possess such abilities? Who exactly are you? Elder Ku Yun stared at Chu Kuangren outside the sword formation and questioned him loudly. His eyes were filled with hatred and confusion. Take a guess. Chu Kuangren chuckled. With a thought, Taoist rhymes circulated in the sword array. Countless sword chi interweaved to form the scene of the 4 seasons, which kept blasting at Old Man Ku Yun. Sometimes, it was like the spring rain, soundless and impossible to guard against. Sometimes, it was like the explosion of spring thunder, peerlessly tyrannical. Sometimes, it was like the scorching heat, raging flames burning the sky. Sometimes, it was like the bleak autumn wind, and the sword chi contained a sense of melancholy. Sometimes, it was as cold and ruthless as the cold wind. The 4 seasons changed, and the scenery of nature was contained within this season. Even though Taoist Withered Cloud was a quasi-saint, he was still in a sorry state under the continuous attacks of the sword array, and his injuries were worsening. I will die. I will die at the hands of a battle king. Taoist Withered Cloud was terrified at the thought of this. He stared at Chu Kuangren, not expecting a young battle monarch to possess the combat strength to kill a boundary sage. This was simply inconceivable. Who is this person? Master Taoist Withered Cloud stared at the peerless white-robed Chu Kuangren. Suddenly, a thought flashed across his mind. You're Chu Kuangren. Oh, you guessed it. You're not too stupid. Chu Kuangren chuckled.
I should have guessed it a long time ago.
With such combat strength, proficiency in swordsmanship, extraordinary looks, and that sword you have on you that looks like white jade and has an extraordinary aura, you must be Chu Kuangren.
Daoist Withered Cloud gnashed his teeth and said.
Now that you've figured it out, you may die in peace, Chu Kuangren said calmly.
With a single thought, the sword formation's transformations reached its peak. A surge of sword-based Daoist rhyme circulated and formed a colorful sword shadow within the sword formation. It contained the power of the four seasons and nature itself, and it slashed down on Master Daoist Withered Cloud. Under this attack, Master Daoist Withered Cloud, who was already riddled with injuries, could not resist at all. All he could do was let out a cry of agony before his entire body was torn apart by the sword chi and shattered into pieces. Even a boundary sage's body could not withstand such an unparalleled power. Return! Chu Kuangren patted the sword case, and the 12 treasured swords returned to him. The power of the four seasons sword formation was stronger than he had imagined, and this was only the second stage. There were still the 24 solar terms and 365 days. How powerful would it be once it was completed? He walked to Master Daoist Withered Cloud's corpse and picked up the yin and yang ring on the ground. After sensing it for a while, he tossed it into the yin and yang ring. What kind of force is the Sacred Palace of Death? Why have I never heard of it in the Azure Dragon domain? Chu Kuangren murmured. Then, he remembered what Black Heaven's third forefather had told him a few days ago. Unknown things, unknown lands. Could this Sacred Palace of Death be one of those unknown lands? Since it was an unknown land, ordinary cultivators would not know about it, so it was only natural that he had not heard of it before. Chu Kuangren raised his hand and used the gluttonous devouring technique to refine the corpse. He would not let go of the corpse even if it was dead. Even turning one's bones into ashes would not be as ruthless as him. The immortal godly phoenix came to Chu Kuangren's side and suddenly said, Mother, you're so powerful. That's... What did you call me?
The immortal godly phoenix tilted her head.
Mother. Her voice was like a 7 or 8-year-old girl's. It sounded crisp and sweet, but Chu Kuangren was speechless. Don't call me mother.
Ah, mother, do you not want me any more?
The immortal godly phoenix sounded like she was about to cry. In her inherited memories, the one who hatched her was her mother. Since Chu Kuangren hatched her, who else could it be but her mother? It's not that I don't want you anymore, but you can't call me mother. Call me brother. Yes, just call me brother, Chu Kuangren said.
Brother?
Yes.
All right then, brother-mother.
Call me brother, don't call me mother. After some persuasion, Chu Kuangren finally corrected the immortal godly phoenix's way of addressing him. All right, let's go back to the Black Heaven sect.
Where's the Black Heaven sect?
Just follow me.
Suddenly, Chu Kuangren looked at the godly phoenix with a hint of hope in his eyes.
Godly phoenix, can we make a deal?
Go ahead, brother.
Can I ride on you for a while? Chu Kuangren suddenly remembered that some experts in the cultivation world often had mounts, such as cranes, tigers, lions and so on. He might as well get himself a mount and try it out. What kind of mount could be more eye-catching than the godly phoenix? Of course. The godly phoenix lowered its body and gestured for Chu Kuangren to get on. Divine beasts were born with noble horoscopes, and most of them were rebellious. Even the emperors of old would find it difficult to capture a divine beast as a mount. However, to the godly phoenix, Chu Kuangren was different. Although she called him brother, she treated him as her mother. It was a piece of cake for her mother to ride her. Chu Kuangren excitedly jumped onto the godly phoenix's back. It was furry, warm, and more comfortable than sitting on an electric blanket in winter. Hold on tight, brother, the godly phoenix said before it flapped its wings and flew into the sky. Inside the Black Heaven sect, various forces had arrived. They were all invited by Honorable Xian Qi to attend the ceremony. Among them were the various sage orthodoxies and honorable orthodoxies of the Azure Dragon domain. All of them were reputable figures. Before the ceremony, the godly phoenix's birth and the myriad bird worship phenomenon had shocked many people at the scene. For a moment, everyone was discussing this matter. However, compared to that, Honorable Xian Qi's expression was not so good as he cursed at the communication compass. Kuangren, today is the day you take over. Everyone from the sage orthodoxies is here. So where have you been? Hurry up and come back. Honorable teacher, I'm in a hurry to attend to something urgent. Can you hold on for a while? Chu Kuangren said.
Honorable Xian-Qi turned off the communication compass and muttered, "This B** is getting more and more troublesome."
Chapter 192. Inside the Longevity Hall of the Black Heaven Sect. Elder Ruyan and the others were pacing back and forth anxiously. When they saw Honorable Xian-Qi hang up the compass, they quickly went up to him.
"How is it?
Is Kuangren back yet?"
"Soon.
He's on his way.
But we can't keep the guests waiting outside, can we?"
"Then what should we do?"
It was Honorable Xian-Qi's first time encountering such a situation. "Sect leader, you're one of the main characters in this inauguration ceremony.
Why are you asking us what to do? Hurry up and hold them off."
Elder Ruyan said helplessly.
"Yeah, just say some pleasantries.
Hold on until the lead disciple returns."
Honorable Xian-Qi was pushed out of the hall.
Outside the hall, a group of cultivators who were there to witness the ceremony gathered together. The ones sitting at the front were the representatives of the various sage orthodoxies. For example, the Royal Azure Dynasty and the School of White Lotus. Below them were the various honorable orthodoxies of the Azure Dragon domain. Most of them were affiliated with the Black Heaven Sect. At this time, everyone was chatting and laughing.
"What do you guys think?
I wonder which virtuous person will be able to obtain the godly phoenix's appearance this time," one of the sage orthodoxies representatives said. At that, the crowd started to discuss among themselves. The appearance of the godly phoenix is the first in hundreds of thousands of years. This era of great battles is just too exciting. I'm afraid there are only a few in this world who are worthy of this divine beast. Whoever can obtain it will be a blessing in disguise.
Indeed.
A few honorable supremes were discussing.
Meanwhile, the sky prides at the scene were extremely excited.
They all hoped that they could obtain the godly phoenix and dominate this era. "If I can obtain the godly phoenix, I won't have to suffer so much under Chu Kuangren," Ao Chong from the sacred lands of serene wisdom thought to himself. There were many who had the same thought as Ao Chong.
"When I return, I must send someone to investigate. I must find a way to control this divine beast,"
Yuan Hong from the Dharma sect thought. "Chu Kuangren, once I get my hands on that divine beast, I don't believe I'll always be suppressed by you." Lin Beishan's eyes lit up.
"That's not right. Isn't this the inauguration ceremony? Why hasn't it started yet?"
The representative from the sacred lands of serene wisdom said unhappily. As soon as he said that, everyone felt that something was wrong.
"It's already late in the morning. Why hasn't it started yet?
Do you really think sunbathing here is fun?
What's wrong with the Black Heaven Sect? Are they trying to mess with us?" Just as the crowd was dissatisfied, Honorable Xian-Qi walked out.
Everyone turned their gazes over.
"Honorable Xian-Qi, why hasn't the inauguration ceremony started yet?"
"Yeah, where's Chu Kuangren now?" Facing a quasi-sage, everyone's tone was much more relaxed. "Ahem, before I pass on my position, I have a few words to say. As you all know, I've been in charge of the Black Heaven Sect for more than 1,000 years. I've been working hard all these years, and 800 years ago, I fought in the North Sea with a single sword." Honorable Xian-Qi began to recount some of the things that had happened during his tenure as the sect leader over the years.
No one disturbed him.
After all, it was very normal for him to give a speech to reminisce about the past.
1 hour. 2 hours. 1.5 hours passed.
Impatience gradually appeared on everyone's faces.
All he had to do was give a speech and say a few words. What was the meaning of this non-stop speech?
They were here to watch the ceremony, not to listen to him brag about himself. If they had the time, wouldn't it be better for them to go to the tea house and listen to a storyteller? Honorable Xian-Qi. At that moment, a Taoist from the Taishu Temple interrupted Honorable Xian-Qi and said, "I wonder if the inauguration ceremony can start now. Let me finish talking about my battle with the nine-headed Honorable One 300 years ago. Back then, the nine-headed Honorable One was also very famous. Everyone wanted to cry but no tears came out. How much longer was this going to take? The sky was going to turn dark if this went on. Look, what's that?" At that moment, someone in the crowd exclaimed. In the distant sky, a ball of red light swept over. Wherever it passed, the clouds were dyed a magnificent crimson. Upon closer inspection, that red light was actually a noble and gorgeous godly phoenix. The godly phoenix's head glowed brightly, and as it flapped its wings, there was a mysterious Taoist rhyme that flowed with auspicious light. It was a divine beast that was on full display. It's the godly phoenix. Could this be the godly phoenix that was born not long ago? But why would it appear here? So this is a divine beast? It's too extraordinary. Compared to it, the other beasts are not even worth mentioning. Heavens! This divine beast is indeed a divine beast. Seeing this godly phoenix, everyone present was amazed. As for some of the honorable supremes and sky prides, they could not sit still anymore. This was a divine beast. If they could tame it, not only would it be of great help to them, but it could also enhance the fate of an orthodoxy. The godly phoenix's life chart was noble. It was definitely possible. Honorable Xian Qi stopped talking and looked at the godly phoenix solemnly. Wait a minute, there seems to be someone on the godly phoenix. One of the honorable supremes said in an uncertain tone. When the others heard this, they could not believe it. Idiot, the godly phoenix is a divine beast with a noble life chart. How could it allow others to sit on its back? That's right, don't treat the godly phoenix as a mount. Since ancient times, only immortals have been able to use divine beasts as mounts. Even the great emperors of old have never heard of anyone having a divine beast as a mount. No, it looks like there really is someone. As the godly phoenix approached, everyone gasped when they saw that there was indeed a figure standing on the godly phoenix's back. F***ck me. There's really someone there? Heavens! Who would have the ability to tame a godly phoenix as a mount? Could it be an immortal that has descended into the mortal realm? Why does this person look so familiar? It's Chu Kuangren. F***ck. It's really him. As the godly phoenix approached the Black Heavens sect, everyone could finally see the figure on the godly phoenix's back. It was Chu Kuangren, who was dressed in white. The godly phoenix was extremely noble, and Chu Kuangren's white robe was peerless. The combination of the two created a huge impact on the crowd. At that moment, Chu Kuangren really looked like an immortal that had descended into the mortal realm. When they arrived above the Black Heavens sect, Chu Kuangren leaped down from the godly phoenix's back and stood in front of the crowd with a smile on his face. At that moment, everyone looked at him with their mouths agape. Even Honorable Xian Qi was no exception. Greetings, fellow Taoists. Chu Kuangren was the first to speak, snapping everyone back to their senses. Then, countless people started to discuss among themselves. F***ck me, he's riding a godly phoenix. This Chu Kuangren is just too cool. How did he do it? This godly phoenix has only been born for a short period of time. We haven't even started looking for it yet, but he's already tamed it. This is just too much of a shock. A divine beast has recognized its master. This Chu Kuangren's luck is just too strong. Meanwhile, sky prides like Yuan Hong, Gu Chang'e, and Ao Chong were even more shaken. They looked at Chu Kuangren as if they were about to cry. Just a second ago, they were still thinking about how to find and tame the godly phoenix when they returned. The next second, Chu Kuangren was riding the godly phoenix right in front of them. Was there anything more shocking than this? This Chu Kuangren can't really be an immortal, can he? Why does he get all the benefits? Chapter 193. Madman, what's going on? Honorable Xian Qi gulped and asked. He was too shocked. After disappearing for a few days, Chu Kuangren returned with the godly phoenix. What exactly had happened? Honorable teacher, I felt something a few days ago, so I went out and met the godly phoenix in a volcano. Chu Kuangren made up stories. No one knew where the godly phoenix came from anyway, so he could say whatever he wanted. Everyone's eyes turned red with envy when they heard what he said. Felt something? He brought the godly phoenix back just by going out? F***ck. This is destiny. This godly phoenix belonged to Chu Kuangren the moment it was born. Everyone could not help but be shocked at that thought. A divine beast's fate is extremely noble, but Chu Kuangren managed to get it to acknowledge him as its master. Doesn't that mean his fate is even more noble than a divine beast? Oh my god, this is too scary. Is he really human? Is he really an immortal? Everyone was shocked, But Honorable Xian Qi could not help but laugh out loud. The heavens have blessed our Black Heavens sect with a divine beast. This is great. Kwangren, get ready. The inauguration ceremony is about to begin. Yes, honorable teacher. Under everyone's envious gaze, Chu Kwangren walked into the palace. Inside, Lil Bing and Lan Yu had already rushed over upon hearing the news. Master, quickly change your clothes. The ceremony is about to begin. Lil Bing was holding a set of clothes in her hand. It was prepared for Chu Kwangren to use during the ceremony. Outside the palace, some people were still immersed in the shock of Chu Kwangren's appearance on the godly phoenix. They could not recover from their shock for a long time. With Chu Kwangren's talent and luck, I don't believe that he won't be able to become an emperor in the future, an honorable said. That's right. It seems like we should avoid being enemies with the Black Heaven sect. With Chu Kwangren, the Black Heaven sect will definitely prosper. That's right. Sigh, this era is destined to be Chu Kwangren's era. Then what's the point of our existence? Ao Chong, Gu Changga, Lin Batian, and the other Sky Prides looked at each other and smiled bitterly. Amitba, Almsgiver Chu is indeed an unprecedented genius, but there is no need to be discouraged. After all, there are people who will become emperors in this era, but it doesn't mean that only one person can become an emperor. A grandmaster from the Thunder Sound Temple of the Sage Orthodoxy said. That's right. The saint once said that this world of great competition is an unprecedented change. The emergence of the great Tao is like adding oil to a raging fire. There might even be a prosperous scene where multiple emperors coexist in the world. The spirit illusion Holy Land's Supreme Exalt said with anticipation in his eyes. Hearing this, the other heaven's favorites regained some confidence. At this moment, the palace gate opened. Chu Kwangren walked out. Everyone looked over, and they were instantly shocked. His long black hair was draped behind him like smoke, and he wore a hollow jade crown on his head. He wore a moon-white, wide-sleeved robe that was embroidered with exquisite patterns and auspicious beasts using golden threads. Around his waist was a white belt with a jade inlaid on it. On the right was a golden tassel, and on the left was the Kuan Wu sacred sword. Long black boots embroidered with auspicious clouds. Chu Kwangren's brand new attire made his almost flawless face and otherworldly temperament to the extreme. As bright as the sun and moon in my arms, as bright as a jade tree in the wind, as solemn as the waves in the pines, as bright as the lightning beneath the rocks. Speak in human language. He's 2F** King handsome. There's no one else in the entire firmament star who can match his temperament and looks. Not only is he talented, his luck is strong, and his looks are flawless. Tiske, what a monster. Some of the female cultivators looked at Chu Kwangren with infatuation. A gentleman's words are as gentle as jade. In his house, he messes with my heart. Some of the female cultivators could not help but mutter. Chu Kwangren slowly walked out of the palace. At the same time, Taoist rhymes reverberated in the surroundings. One by one, the Black Heaven sect disciples bowed and saluted him. They lined up on both sides to form a passage with a high platform at the end. Honorable Xian Qi sat on the high platform and looked at him with gratification. Chu Kwangren walked towards the high platform and stood beside Honorable Xian Qi. I, Honorable Xian Qi, the 9th sect leader of the Black Heaven sect, officially pass on my position to Chu Kwangren. My fellow cultivators, the sun, moon, mountains and rivers, please bear witness that from today onwards, Chu Kwangren is the 10th sect leader of the Black Heaven sect. After that, Honorable Xian Qi took out a sword-shaped jade token and handed it to Chu Kwangren. This was the token of the Black Heaven sect leader, the Black Heaven sword token. Chu Kwangren stretched out his hands and took the sword token respectfully. Your disciple will not disappoint you, honorable teacher. I will wholeheartedly take care of the Black Heaven sect. The descendant's self-sword at his waist suddenly unsheathed and hovered in the air. Then, a surge of sword-based Taoist rhyme soared into the sky. With me around, no one can bully the Black Heaven sect. With me around, everyone in the Black Heaven sect will rise to greatness. With me around, the Black Heaven sect will prosper forever. With me around, the heavens, the earth, the sun, and the moon shall bear witness, and all deities shall hear. In the distance, the mysterious Heaven Sword Mountain seemed to have been summoned, and sword hymns echoed endlessly. Countless long swords flew into the sky and moved through the clouds. Tens of thousands of sword intents intertwined in the sky, creating a magnificent and majestic scene. The sword intent of the Sword Mountain and Chu Kuangren's Taoist rhyme resonated with each other, and an unparalleled domineering aura swept across the entire area in an instant. Everyone looked at the white-robed figure on the high platform and was shocked. The eyes of the Black Heaven sect disciples were filled with fanaticism and admiration. In the distance, Elder Ruyan and the others were extremely pleased. Deep within the Black Heaven sect, in a few thatched cottages, a white-haired old man suddenly opened his eyes and looked in the direction of the inauguration ceremony with a smile. His smile grew wider and wider until he could not help but laugh out loud. With this person here, the Black Heaven sect will prosper. Carefree laughter came from the other cottages as well. God bless the Black Heaven sect. This young man is really adorable. It was worth it for the seventh forefather to drag his heavenly deterioration 5 body into the world to protect him. Haha, speaking of which, the seventh forefather is really lucky this time. With the heavenly deterioration 5 gone, he's even younger than us. I guess it won't be long before he ascends as well. Very good, very good. Chu Kuangren stood on the high platform in his peerless white robe. With a sword order in his hand, sword-based Taoist rhyme emanated from his body and his sleeves fluttered in the wind. He truly had feelings for the Black Heaven sect. Even if he was helpless before, now that he had assumed the position of sect leader, he had the responsibility to bring glory to the Black Heaven sect. Greetings, sect leader. Greetings, sect leader. The group of Black Heaven sect disciples knelt on one knee before Chu Kuangren. Not far away, the elders bowed as well. Greetings, sect leader. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly and kept the sword order away. As the sword-based Taoist rhyme dissipated, the Sword Mountain in the distance also returned to its peaceful state. The sacred lands of Serene Wisdom, Taishu Temple, Thunder Temple, and other sage orthodoxies representatives stepped forward to congratulate him. Greetings, sect leader Chu. With sect leader Chu around, I believe the Black Heaven sect will definitely prosper. That's right. With sect leader Chu's talent, the Black Heaven sect will definitely prosper. Congratulations, sect leader Chu. Haha, if sect leader Chu has time in the future, feel free to visit our Taishu temple. We can discuss the cooperation between our 2 sects and develop together. In the face of everyone's congratulations, Chu Kuangren smiled and responded to them one by one. Although he was still immature, he already had the demeanor of an orthodoxies leader. Chapter 194. Chu Kuangren had taken over as the Black Heaven sect leader. The crowd congratulated him. At that moment, a golden chariot that was radiating rays of light arrived from afar. It exuded an extraordinary Taoist rhyme. Around the carriage were armored imperial guards. Every single one of them exuded the aura of someone who had been through hundreds of battles. The crowd looked over and was shocked. 6 godly horses pulling the chariot? Only the royal family of the royal Azure dynasty can enjoy such treatment. Which noble of the dynasty is this? If Gu Chang'e is here, who else could it be? Gu Chang'e was surprised as well. However, he recognized the chariot and knew who it was. The chariot's curtain was lifted, and a beautiful lady in a gorgeous phoenix robe walked out. It was Princess Linglong. It's her. It's normal for her to attend Chu Kuangren's inauguration ceremony. After all, he's her fiancé. The crowd discussed. Princess Linglong got off the chariot and smiled at Chu Kuangren. Fiancé, I'm late. Please forgive me. You're welcome, princess. Heh, your attire today is quite nice. Princess Linglong sized Chu Kuangren up with a glimmer in her eyes. She could not help but compliment him. You flatter me, princess. Since when was he not nice? Today, I'm here with a decree from my father. Princess Linglong took out an imperial decree and an honorable aura emanated from it. The people of the royal Azure dynasty immediately knelt. Chu Kuangren stood still and looked at Princess Linglong with a smile. Your Highness, I don't have to kneel, do I? Of course. In the past, he did not have to kneel before the royal Azure dynasty king. Now that he was the Black Heaven sect leader, his status was on par with the royal Azure dynasty, so he did not have to kneel. By the will of the heavens, fiancé Chu Kuangren is a man of virtue and talent. I'm impressed and hereby confer you the title of King Equal.
Princess Linglong opened the imperial decree and read it. The crowd was shocked when they heard that. The people of the royal Azure dynasty, especially, were dumbfounded. King equal. That was a title that was on par with the ruler of a country. Since ancient times, only 2 or 3 people had received that title. Now it was given to Chu Kuangren. Prince consort, accept the decree. Princess Linglong stepped forward and handed the imperial edict to Chu Kuangren. Thank you, Your Majesty. Chu Kuangren accepted the imperial edict without hesitation. You are still calling me king, Princess Linglong said with some resentment. Then please thank our father for me, Chu Kuangren said as he rubbed his nose. Upon hearing this, Princess Linglong beamed with joy. Even the blooming of 100 flowers could not compare to the smile on her face. Many male cultivators couldn't help but sigh upon seeing this. This Chu Kuangren is a winner in life. This is too infuriating. What cultivators seek is wealth, companions, techniques, and land. He alone has them all, and everything is of the highest quality. How can I not be angry? At this moment, a woman walked out from the crowd. This person was dressed in white and had a tranquil smile on his face, making people feel as if they were bathing in the spring breeze. When everyone looked over, they were all surprised. She was the holy maiden of the School of White Lotus. Other than attending the ceremony, the School of White Lotus has come to the Black Heaven sect this time to inform the bachelor sage of something else, the White Lotus Maiden Sage said with a faint smile. What is it? The White Lotus Maiden Sage took out a white ancient edict that was engraved with white lotus patterns. A mysterious Taoist rhyme emanated from the ancient edict. According to the leader's decree, from today onwards, the bachelor sage will officially be promoted to the supreme elder of the School of White Lotus. His treatment will be the same as the leader's. Bachelor sage, no supreme elder. Please accept this edict. Everyone was completely dumbfounded at this. Was it not enough that they had a ruler equal, now they had a supreme elder as well? F***CK. What the hell was going on? Chu Kuangren was slightly surprised as well, but after some thought, he accepted the edict. Please thank the leader for me. You're too kind, elder. The White Lotus Maiden Sage smiled. When the people from the other orthodoxies saw this, they could already guess what was going on. If Chu Kuangren is still the School of White Lotus Bachelor Sage and the fiancé of the Royal Azure Dynasty after taking over the Black Heaven sect leader's position, it would undoubtedly lower the Black Heaven sect status to the other 2 orthodoxies. That's right. That's why the Royal Azure Dynasty and the School of White Lotus would elevate Chu Kuangren's status in their orthodoxies to maintain their alliance with the Black Heaven sect and deepen their relationship with Chu Kuangren. Oh, I see. Many people pondered for a while before they figured out the reason behind the 2 orthodoxies' actions. Chu Kuangren was now the Black Heaven sect's sect leader. How would the higher-ups of the Black Heaven sect be happy to have a sect leader like him become a bachelor sage or the fiancé of another orthodoxies? Did that not mean that they would have to lower their heads to them? That was why the 2 orthodoxies made Chu Kuangren a ruler equal and a supreme elder. That position was not any lower than the dynasty lord or the sect leader. Although they understood the reason behind it, they still found it hard to believe. Within a day, he had become a sect leader, a ruler equal, and a supreme elder. It was truly shocking. Today is not only the Black Heaven sect's inauguration ceremony, but it's also the day that the 3 sage orthodoxies will publicly form an alliance in front of the many forces. That's right. With Chu Kuangren around, the 3 sage orthodoxies will definitely be closely linked. They will rise or fall together. Chu Kuangren is amazing. The crowd was amazed. At that moment, outside the Black Heaven sect's mountain entrance, a majestic sword-based Taoist rhyme erupted and swept in all directions. Everyone felt the sword-based Taoist rhyme and looked towards the Black Heaven sect's mountain entrance. They saw a middle-aged man in a green robe standing with his hands behind his back. That sword-based Taoist rhyme was coming from him. I'm Murong Feng. I'm here to challenge the 100 Sword Spectrum's number 1, Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren, please show yourself. The middle-aged man's thunderous roar echoed throughout the Black Heaven sect. Everyone who came to watch the ceremony was surprised. In the crowd, Taoist Murong Xian's face turned pale. It's him, the 100 Sword Spectrum's number 2, Murong Feng from the Black Warrior domain. 1 mountain, 1 sect, and 2 families.
This man is the Murong clan's #1 swordsman below the sages, Murong Feng. I heard that even the Murong clan's current clan head is no match for him. If it weren't for the fact that he doesn't want to be the clan head, he would have been the clan head a long time ago. I can't believe he's here to challenge Chu Kuangren on such a special day. Tiske, if Chu Kuangren is defeated by this man, his reputation as a sect leader will be greatly diminished. Everyone looked at Chu Kuangren, waiting to see what he would do. Honorable teacher, did we send an invitation to the Murong clan? Chu Kuangren asked Honorable Xian Qi. Honorable Xian Qi shook his head and said, the Murong clan is in the Black Warrior domain. It's so far away, I can't be bothered to send them off. Besides, the relationship between the one mountain, one sect, and two families was not harmonious. Sending them to watch the ceremony would only make things difficult for them. Since there's no such thing, I'll send him away now. Chu Kuangren smiled. Then, his figure turned into a stream of light and disappeared on the spot. Not many people in the crowd could catch his movement. He's so fast. While everyone was still in shock, Chu Kuangren had already arrived at the mountain entrance, facing the 100 Sword Spectrum's #2. As soon as they met, their sword-based Taoist rhymes collided. Chapter 195. One was ranked first in the 100 Sword Spectrum while the other was ranked second. Both of them were top-notch swordsmen below the sages. When the two surges of sword-based Taoist rhymes collided, the resulting shockwave sent the surrounding rocks and plants flying like a hurricane. Murong Feng's expression changed the moment his sword-based Taoist rhymes collided with Chu Kuangren. He was horrified. Chu Kuangren's Taoist rhymes had completely suppressed him. How can his Taoist rhymes be so strong? Murong Feng could not believe it. He had forgotten that Chu Kuangren could spar with a sage. How could an honorable realm cultivator compare to his sword-based Taoist rhymes? It was the same even for honorable supremes. Today is a joyous day for the Black Heaven sect. I don't want to wield my sword on this day. If you want to challenge me, sure, but pick another day to come again, Chu Kuangren said. Murong Feng had heard about Chu Kuangren taking over as the Black Heaven sect leader, so he knew what he meant by a joyous day. I've come from afar just to witness your sword Dao. I won't stop until I've achieved my goal. Your Excellency, please enlighten me. Murong Feng's eyes lit up. He no longer cared about Chu Kuangren's identity as a junior, and the sword chi within his body erupted. The sword chi was like a tornado that swept towards Chu Kuangren. You're asking for it. Chu Kuangren raised an eyebrow. He raised his hand and gathered a majestic amount of earth chi. When he unleashed a palm attack, the power of the godly mountain erupted. When the sword chi and earth chi collided, the ground instantly exploded. As the two different Taoist rhymes intertwined, Murong Feng's eyes flashed with battle intent as he praised, "What a great palm technique!" He was indeed worthy of being ranked second in the 100 Sword Spectrum. Ordinary honorable supremes would have been pushed back by Chu Kuangren's palm attack, but he did not move an inch. The long sword in his hand shone with a brilliant sword ray. It was a sacred sword. The second in the 100 Sword Spectrum, second only to Descendant Self-Sun Contending Sword. Slash! Murong Feng leaped into the air and gathered the sword-based Taoist rhymes around him. A gigantic sword shadow appeared out of thin air with a majestic amount of Taoist rhymes. Like a meteor, it slashed towards Chu Kuangren. The terrifying sword pressure caused the entire mountain gate of the Black Heaven sect to tremble. The cultivators who rushed over from all directions were also amazed. Good sword Dao. As expected of the second-ranked existence in the heavenly sword spectrum. That sword is something that even an utmost exalt would find hard to defend against. No wonder Murong Feng is the #1 swordsman in the Murong clan apart from the sages. Just based on this sword technique alone, he can be called the #1 swordsman in the entire Firmament Star apart from the sages. Honorable Xian Qi was among the crowd as well. He looked at the sword that was descending from the sky with a serious look in his eyes. Even though he had advanced to a quasi-sage, he could still feel a tremendous amount of pressure from that sword. It was not without reason that Murong Feng's ranking on the 100 Sword Spectrum was higher than his before he underwent his heavenly tribulation. Kuangren. The sword chi on Honorable Xian Qi's body circulated as he stared at the sword, ready to help Chu Kuangren at any time. However, a terrifying surge of Taoist rhyme erupted from Chu Kuangren's body, and the descendant's self-sword at his waist let out a bright sword ray. With a slash of the sword, an emperor's aura appeared. The Taoist rhyme contained in Murong Feng's sword was being suppressed. This was an emperor suppressing all laws. Heaven-slaying sword-drawing technique. Chu Kuangren shouted. The descendant's self-sword slashed across the sky. The dazzling purple sword ray almost covered the entire sky, and its majestic sword-based Taoist rhyme violently crashed into the void like a tsunami. Murong Feng's sword attack was shattered on the spot. The terrifying sword ray landed on his body and sent him flying thousands of meters away before he crashed into a mountain in the distance. He spat out a mouthful of blood before he was buried under countless rocks. There was no movement from him, and no one knew if he was dead or alive. Everyone quickly released their spiritual thoughts to sense around. They saw that Murong Feng was buried under a pile of rocks. His chest rose and fell slightly, and his aura was weak. Although he was not dead, he had lost consciousness. He had been knocked unconscious by a single slash. Everyone gulped as they felt a little horrified. Murong Feng was extremely powerful, and it was not an exaggeration to say that he was the best swordsman below the sages. Yet, he was knocked unconscious by a single slash from Chu Kuangren? Chu Kuangren's strength was just too overwhelming. Even the Honorable Supremes could not help but feel a chill down their spines. I can't believe he's already this powerful. TSK, what a monster. Chu Kuangren sheathed his descendant self-sword and muttered, I've already told you that I don't want to wield a sword. Why did you have to force me? Look at what happened now. I can't even take a single slash from him. How embarrassing. His voice was not loud, but everyone at the scene, including those who did not have a high cultivation level, could hear him clearly. Everyone could not help but sweat. Not to mention Murong Feng. There were not many below the sage level who could withstand this attack. Everyone, the inauguration ceremony is now over. I've already asked someone to prepare a banquet. Please enjoy yourselves. Honorable Xian Qi smiled. When everyone heard that, they no longer cared about Murong Feng. When they arrived at the palace, the banquet was already prepared. Everyone exchanged toasts and toasted each other as the host and guests enjoyed themselves. Brother Xian Qi, now that you've let go of the heavy responsibility of being the sect leader, your next step is to hide behind the scenes and accumulate your resources to become a sage. An honorable from the Taishu temple said enviously. Haha, I'm indeed going to live in seclusion. However, I still don't know when I'll become a sage. Honorable Xian Qi laughed heartily. Generally speaking, after becoming a boundary sage, as long as one accumulated their resources well, it was almost certain that they would become a sage in the future. However, every cultivator had a different understanding of the Tao and different aptitudes, so the time needed to become a sage was different as well. It could be as short as 100 years, or as long as 1,000 years. With Brother Xian Qi's aptitude, becoming a sage is only a matter of 100 years. The Honorable from the Taishu Temple said. Honorable Xian Qi was also a peerless genius when he was young. With his aptitude, since he had successfully passed the ascension, it was not impossible for him to become a sage within 100 years. I hope so. After the banquet ended, the people from the various orthodoxies gradually left. However, everyone did not come to the inauguration ceremony in vain. To be able to see the true face of the godly phoenix was already a blessing of 3 lifetimes. The inauguration ceremony ended just like that. Inside the towering heaven palace, Honorable Xian Qi and the others were gathered together, and in front of them stood a blood-colored godly phoenix. The godly phoenix was pecking at its feathers, occasionally raising its head to look at Honorable Xian Qi and the others before ignoring them. Oh, the godly phoenix. I can't believe I'm able to meet such a divine beast in my lifetime. I'm so lucky. Yeah, it's my first time seeing it too. I wonder what it'll feel like to touch it. I heard that Kuangren has even ridden on it before. I wonder what it'll feel like to ride on the godly phoenix. I really want to give it a try. Don't joke around. This is a divine beast we're talking about. It's extremely noble. Unless it approves of someone, no one else will let it touch it. Everyone was talking at once as they looked at the godly phoenix in awe. At that moment, Chu Kuangren walked over. The godly phoenix immediately dashed towards him when it saw him. Along the way, it bumped into a few elders, causing them to stumble. However, The elders were not the least bit dissatisfied. Instead, they were all smiles.
Haha, I was hit by a divine beast. So this is how it feels to be hit by a divine beast.
Brother. The godly phoenix intimately rubbed itself against Chu Kuangren's body. Chu Kuangren stroked her neck and said sternly, "How could you be so reckless? Stop messing around like this from now on."
Chapter 196.
I understand, brother. The godly phoenix rubbed against Chu Kuangren's body and said in a crisp voice,
"All right, stop rubbing.
There are so many people watching, though it's quite comfortable." Chu Kuangren muttered the last part of his sentence. The feathers of the divine phoenix were soft and had a sense of warmth. When it rubbed against him, he felt warm and comfortable. The elders were so shocked that their eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets when they saw how the divine beast was behaving like a pet in front of Chu Kuangren. The chief is the chief after all, easily accomplishing what we couldn't.
Admirable, admirable. An elder said.
You're still calling him chief disciple?
Cough, sect leader, it's the sect leader. It can't be changed in a short time.
By the way, Kuangren, does this divine beast have a name?
Elder Ruyan asked curiously.
Chu Kuangren shook his head. Not yet. Have you thought it through?
All right.
Chu Kuangren stroked the godly phoenix's neck and said, "Seeing how red she is, let's call her Lil Red." No. How can you be so casual?
Elder Ruyan, Honorable Xian Qi, and the others were speechless.
This was a divine beast.
Little Red?
If word of this got out, how embarrassing would that be?
I think it's pretty good.
Lil Red. Lil Red. How pleasing to the ear, and it sounds easier to raise. Chu Kuangren laughed.
Do you think you're raising a cat or a dog? Honorable Xian Qi rolled his eyes.
He finally realized that his disciple was a failure at naming.
Then, Master, why don't you choose one?
No, I want to be called Xiao Hong.
This is the name that big brother gave me.
I want to be called Xiao Hong, the divine phoenix suddenly said.
Chu Kuangren looked at Honorable Xian Qi and the others.
Look, he's already agreed.
Divine Phoenix. This name is related to one's life.
I don't need it to be domineering, but this Little Red is too shabby.
Yeah. Please change to another one. Honorable Xian Qi and the others quickly advised.
When she thought of the divine phoenix fighting with others in the future and the other party asking her to say her name, she would say, "I am Xiao Hong of the Black Heaven sect." The enemies on the other side would probably burst into laughter.
No, I have to change.
Honorable Xian Qi and the others tried to persuade it, but the godly phoenix was unexpectedly stubborn. No matter what name they gave it, it did not want it.
I don't want to.
I'll just be called Lil Red, the godly phoenix said. That was the first name Chu Kuangren had given her, and it had a special meaning to it. Lan Yu looked at the divine phoenix from the side and understood. After all, Chu Kuangren was the one who gave her name. Even if it didn't sound good, she still liked it.
How about this?
Her nickname is Xiao Hong, and her real name is Chu Hong. Chu Kuangren stroked the godly phoenix's feathers and said, "Since you're calling me brother, you can follow my surname from now on." The divine phoenix tilted its head. "All right, my name is Chu Hong." Honorable Xian Qi and the others looked at each other and could only give up.
Forget it, forget it. Chu Hong is pretty good.
AI. It's a pity that my name is Feng Outyen.
How domineering.
The name, Feng Xiaoyao, sounds better. I hope that the divine beast will be able to enjoy the great Tao in the future and live a carefree life. Chu Hong. It's better than Xiao Hong. Thus, the storm of naming mythological beasts subsided. Congratulations, host, for drawing a Starlight Grade Enlightenment card.
Huh, a Starlight Grade Enlightenment card? This is good stuff.
Chu Kuangren opened his inventory and saw that there were more than 10 Tao Enlightenment cards in the Tao Enlightenment card section. There were silver, gold, and even Starlight Grade cards, and each of them could allow one to enter a state of epiphany. He looked at these Enlightenment cards and suddenly had an idea.
He left the Taoist palace.
The disciples along the way bowed respectfully when they saw him.
Greetings, sect leader.
Greetings, sect leader. Chu Kuangren did not find it difficult to adapt. From elder senior brother to sect leader, it was just a change of title. As for other matters, There were a few elders to help him. To be honest, other than the change in identity, he did not feel any difference between the sect leader and elder senior brother. Everything was the same. He came to the Black Heaven sect's library. There were countless sword Dao techniques there, and he came here today to realize the idea in his heart. He stepped onto the third floor of the library, picked up a sword Dao book and began to read. In the past, he created his own sage ruler technique in the library, so he knew all the sword Dao techniques in the library by heart. However, in the past few years, his realm of Dao techniques was no longer comparable to before. At this time, when he looked at it again, his understanding of these techniques had deepened, even more than the original creator. He took out a Starlight Grade Enlightenment card and crushed it. Suddenly, he entered a state of epiphany. He started to flip through all the books in the library. With the Dao Enlightenment card and the Meditative Clarity of Self, every sword Dao manual that he had read before was disassembled and reorganized by him. He had a very thorough understanding of it. Half a day later, a surge of sword-based Taoist rhyme rose into the sky in the library. All the Black Heaven sect disciples were startled. It's in the direction of the library. What's wrong? The library again? Why did I say again? This Taoist rhyme is so mysterious. It's the sect leader. The sect leader is going to do something again. Let's go take a look. A group of disciples and elders arrived outside the library. When they saw Chu Kuangren reading, they were not surprised at all. It really is the sect leader. What is the sect leader trying to do this time? Even if the sect leader creates another sage technique, I won't be surprised. This is too normal. Everyone was already immune to the commotion that Chu Kuangren would cause from time to time, so they just stood outside the library and watched without making any noise. Elder Ruyan and the others also came. She was not surprised when she sensed the sword-based Taoist rhyme lingering above the library, but she was curious about what Chu Kuangren would do. In the depths of the Black Heaven sect, in a few thatched cottages. This little guy just became the sect leader yesterday. What is he going to do today? The voice of Black Heaven's third forefather was heard. My disciple has made a fool of himself. Honorable Xian Qi, who had just finished building a thatched cottage and joined the group, laughed. Ninth forefather, don't be so smug. The ninth forefather was referring to Honorable Xian Qi. Everyone could hear the pride in his words and could not help but feel a little jealous. Although they were all from the Black Heaven sect, Honorable Xian Qi was Chu Kuangren's honorable master, so their relationship was definitely closer than theirs. Hey, look, there's a change. At that moment, Black Heaven's third forefather said. In their spiritual thoughts perception, the vast sword-based Taoist rhyme above the library suddenly began to evolve. They saw the sword-based Taoist rhyme flowing and turning into a landscape of mountains and rivers. Within it, there was a sage's aura. This is a sage technique. Black Heaven's third forefather said in surprise. This aura is indeed a sage technique. This little guy is really amazing. I didn't expect him to create another sage technique. Black Heaven's third forefather exclaimed. Although it's not as shocking as his self-created emperor technique, it's still incredible for a battle monarch to create a sage technique. I really don't know how he did it. Wait, there's another change. In the sky above the library, the sword-based Taoist rhyme flowed and created all kinds of visions. There was a sun in the sky, stars changing, all kinds of strange beasts moving, and frost dancing. Each of these phenomena exuded the might of a sage. Every one of them was a sage technique. Chapter 197. The sky above the library was filled with transformations. There were mountains and rivers, majestic auras, the sun and moon rotating, alternating between black and white, and all kinds of strange beasts flying and ferocious chi soaring into the sky. Each of these transformations contained a mysterious Taoist rhyme. Each of them was a sage technique. Everyone gulped. Even if they had some understanding of Chu Kuangren's mystical abilities, they were still shocked by what they saw. These were sage techniques. Even a sage orthodoxy only had a few of them, and they were extremely rare in the outside world. How could Chu Kuangren have so many of them? And they were all self-created. This was just too scary. Elder senior brother. Oh no, sect leader, is he really human? *CKME 1, 2, 3, 4. 9 sage techniques. No, it's still increasing.
10 sage techniques. Even our Black Heaven sect only has 3 sage techniques. Including the heaven-slaying sword-drawing technique that our sect leader created, we only have 4. Now there are 10 more. Maybe even more. How did sect leader do it?
Is he really an immortal?
In the depths of the Black Heaven sect, the sages in the cottage were also scared to death. The few Black Heaven forefathers were silent for a while. CKME. Does this guy think sage techniques are cabbages? He just came out of nowhere. This is too crazy. Even though Black Heaven's third forefather had lived for nearly 10,000 years, he was still shocked by Chu Kuangren. Sage techniques could only be created by sages who had a deep understanding of Taoist rhymes. Even for a sage, it would take a lot of effort to create a sage technique. For example, Black Heaven's third forefather had only created 1 sage technique after so many years, and he had been using it ever since. Yet now, Chu Kuangren had spent half a day to create a bunch of them. How could they not lose their composure when they saw that? He's in a state of epiphany. At that moment, an old voice came from one of the cottages. It was Black Heaven's second forefather, the person with the highest seniority in the Black Heaven sect after the late founding forefather. Even if he's in a state of epiphany, it's unbelievable that he could do this, Black Heaven's third forefather said. Perhaps he's talented to begin with. Above the library, various transformations appeared one after another. There were a total of 12 types, representing 12 types of saint techniques. Everyone was dumbfounded by what they saw. Sect leader is going against the heavens. Elder Ruyan swallowed her saliva, her eyes filled with indescribable shock. Elder Ruyan, bring me 12 Dao loading tablets. At that moment, Chu Kuangren's voice came from the library. Hearing this, Elder Ruyan recovered from her shock and hurriedly left. Not long after, she returned with 12 Dao loading tablets. 12 squarish Dao steels were placed outside the door of the library, and then a sword light suddenly flashed out. The sword light was incomparably majestic, like a vast mountain and river. Bang! The sword light landed on the Dao loading monument, leaving behind a sword mark. Then, it transformed into countless characters. This was a type of saint method. Another strike. The sword light contained the interchanging of the sun and the moon, and the will of endless growth. Following that, a ferocious green dragon soared into the sky. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws, emitting a baleful aura that sent chills down one's spine. The 12 types of saint techniques were displayed by Chu Kuangren one by one, hitting the Dao loading tablets and turning them into countless mysterious characters that were imprinted on them. Today, I will create 12 types of saint techniques. These 12 Dao loading tablets will be placed on the last floor of the library. All true disciples can view and comprehend them on their own, Chu Kuangren said lightly. As soon as this was said, all the disciples suddenly burst into discussion. It really is 12 types of saint techniques. Sect leader is amazing. Only true disciples can go and comprehend them. It seems that I need to be promoted to a true disciple as soon as possible so that I can comprehend these saint techniques. Don't stop me. I'm going to comprehend them later. Me too. All the disciples were extremely happy. Especially the true disciples. They could not wait to immediately sit in front of the Dao loading tablets and comprehend the saint techniques. As for the disciples who were not true disciples, they were not dissatisfied. After all, saint techniques were the foundation of an orthodoxy. It was impossible to spread it so that everyone could learn it. It was reasonable to only allow true disciples to comprehend it. This instead stimulated the motivation of the outer and inner sect disciples to work hard in their cultivation. After a while, Chu Kuangren walked out of the library. He looked calm and emotionless, as if he was not the one who had just created 12 types of saint techniques. Sect leader, you've really given us a big surprise.
Elder Ruyan and the others walked up to him.
Yes, all along, our Black Heaven sect has only had 3 types of saint techniques for cultivation. The heaven-slaying sword-drawing technique that sect leader created in the past for offensive purposes. But this is a sage ruler technique and is difficult to comprehend. Now that we have these saint techniques, we can make up for this. 12 saint techniques, sect leader, you're really going against the heavens. In the face of the elder's shocked gazes, Chu Kuangren only smiled lightly. There was not a trace of pride on his face. He knew that the people of the Black Heaven sect lacked offensive sage techniques, which was why he decided to create his own sage technique today.
He had comprehended 2 emperor scriptures in succession, and with the addition of the meditational clarity attribute, his understanding of Tao techniques was too deep. After using a Starlight Grade Epiphany card, he was able to create 12 types of saint techniques by himself. Moreover, these saint techniques were created based on the various cultivation techniques of the Black Heaven sect, extracting the essence and removing the impurities. The disciples of the Black Heaven sect could cultivate these saint techniques with half the effort. It's a pity that these are just ordinary saint techniques. I originally wanted to create 2 sage ruler techniques, but it seems that my understanding of Tao techniques is still not deep enough, Chu Kuangren murmured. Hearing that, the mouths of Elder Ruyan and the others twitched twice.
What kind of joke was that?
Creating 12 types of saint techniques in half a day, if that was still considered as not having a deep understanding of Tao techniques, they felt that all the cultivators in the world should collectively commit suicide.
It was true.
Hearing Chu Kuangren's words, they felt that all these years had been wasted.
Sect leader, please don't say such things in the future. It's really too much of a blow, Elder Ruyan said with a bitter smile. Chu Kuangren chuckled. I'm just training your Taoist core. Your Taoist core is about to collapse, sect leader. The few elders wanted to cry but no tears came out. After the 12 types of saint techniques were created, the rest was left to Elder Ruyan and the others to handle. Although they were dealt a blow by Chu Kuangren, the elders were still very surprised. Chu Kuangren even gave them the naming rights for these saint techniques, which made them even more excited. In the depths of the Black Heaven sect, the few forefathers clearly saw the whole process of Chu Kuangren creating his own saint techniques. I've been on the throne for more than 1,000 years, but all of my merits combined are not as good as the 12 saint techniques he created today. One of the forefathers suddenly mocked himself and lamented. I know, right? You know, he just became the sect leader yesterday.
With these 12 saint techniques, the foundation of our Black Heaven sect will be greatly strengthened.
Our Black Heaven sect has a lucky star. Chapter 198.
After Chu Kuangren created his own sage technique, he arrived at a mountain peak in the Black Heaven sect. This mountain peak was very tall, and one could see far and wide from it.
Let's do it here.
Chu Kuangren nodded and took out a small pagoda. It was the sword gauntlet that he had obtained in the hidden sword canyon.
He threw out the sword gauntlet.
The sword tower expanded rapidly in the wind. In next to no time, a lofty tower appeared on the mountain peak, and a strand of sword chi shot into the sky, causing the clouds in an area of 5,000 kilometers to roil.
Deep within the Black Heaven sect, a few forefathers could not help but be surprised.
What the hell is this little fellow up to now?
I want to see what other surprises he can give me.
That's the sword tower.
Black Heaven's third forefather exclaimed in surprise. Sword tower, the sword tower in the hidden sword gorge. Why did he take this out?
When Chu Kuangren placed the sword gauntlet on the mountain peak, a surge of sword-based Taoist rhyme emanated and attracted many disciples.
This is the sword tower, and it can be used as a training ground.
From now on, all disciples can enter the sword tower to verify their cultivation.
Chu Kuangren said to the disciples who had just arrived. Everyone was very curious about the sword gauntlet.
A successor disciple walked out and said, "Sect leader, can I go in and give it a try?"
Of course.
That direct disciple walked into the sword tower excitedly. Everyone saw the light spot that belonged to him appear on the first floor of the sword tower.
Soon, he reached the 11th floor. Then, he was teleported out dejectedly.
However, his eyes were filled with excitement.
Sect leader, the sword gauntlet is really amazing. It can test one's Taoist heart and also test one's combat ability. In the future, you can come whenever you want.
Chu Kuangren chuckled. To adapt to the average strength of these disciples, Chu Kuangren made some changes to the sword gauntlet. For example, he removed the invisible barrier from the 1st to the 20th floor and changed it to a faceless swordsman. On the first level, the faceless swordsman would be used to test his combat strength. On the second level, he would use the illusion to test his Tao heart. On the third level, he would test his combat strength. On the fourth level, he would test his Tao heart. As the number of levels increased, so did the difficulty. However, he did not change the 48th and 50th floors. Wanting to pass was still as difficult as ascending to the heavens.
I want to go in and give it a try too.
Me too.
Together.
The group of disciples was eager to give it a try, and they continuously rushed into the sword tower. However, apart from the true disciples who were able to reach the 10th floor and above, the majority of the inner and outer disciples could only stay below the 10th floor. With this sword tower, the disciples can test their strength at any time, and they can even test their Tao hearts. It's killing two birds with one stone. In fact, in order to climb to a higher level, the disciples will redouble their efforts in cultivation, forming a good competitive relationship with each other. Not bad, not bad. Chu Kuangren nodded in satisfaction. The greatest opportunity in the sword tower, which was the mindful emperor's inheritance, had already been obtained by him. The sword tower itself wasn't of much use to him, so he might as well take it out and let the disciples train. The forefathers of the Black Heaven sect naturally understood what Chu Kuangren was doing. They couldn't help but click their tongues in wonder. First it was the sage technique, and now this sword gauntlet. These two actions of his are of great significance to the Black Heaven sect, third forefather said. Not bad. Letting him take over the position of sect master was indeed the right decision.
Honorable Shen Qi smiled proudly. Black Heaven sect, outside the mountain gate.
A pile of rubble suddenly exploded, and a middle-aged man with a dusty face walked out with a confused look on his face.
Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing?
After a while, the middle-aged man shook his head, and his eyes gradually became clear. He then cursed, F***ck me. I can't believe Chu Kuangren's strength is so strong.
He knocked me out with one slash. Say, what time is it now?
That man was Murong Feng, who was knocked out by Chu Kuangren.
You've been unconscious for 2 days and 1 night.
At that moment, a voice came from beside Murong Feng. He turned around, and his expression changed. He then snorted.
Murong Xian, why are you here?
Murong Xian said, if I wasn't here, you would have been eaten by the beasts.
Come to think of it, you should thank me. Have you been in the Black Heaven sect all these years?
Murong Feng changed the topic.
Yes.
No wonder I couldn't find you.
Humph. Why are you looking for me?
Are you going to bring me back to the Murong clan to continue being humiliated by Murong Yu and the others?
Murong Xian snorted. Murong Feng frowned.
Murong Yu and the others are in the wrong, but you're still a member of the Murong clan.
That's undeniable.
Don't give me that.
The Murong clan has never treated me like family.
Even that father of mine has never asked about me. Otherwise, Murong Yu and the others wouldn't have dared to be so unscrupulous. At the mention of this, Murong Xian's eyes revealed a hint of sadness.
The Black Heaven sect is my home now. I know you're here to bring me back, but I won't go with you.
Murong Xian, do you know that the Murong clan's clan trial is coming soon?
Murong Feng said. It has nothing to do with me.
Then your mother has nothing to do with you.
What do you mean?
Murong Xian's eyes turned cold. After the clan trial, we'll worship our ancestors, but your mother's identity has always been criticized in the clan. Rumor has it that after the clan trial, the elders plan to move your mother out of the clan tomb.
Boom!
A violent surge of sword chi suddenly erupted from Murong Xian's body. As if the surrounding plants were affected by his anger, they instantly turned into ashes.
My mother is already dead.
Why do you still want to disturb her rest? Do you really want my mother to not be able to rest in peace?
Murong Xian said with bloodshot eyes.
His rage was about to burn away his rationality. The clan tomb was the resting place of the Murong clan's ancestors. Murong Xian's mother was also buried there as the clan leader's concubine. If you want your mother to rest in peace, there's only one way. That is to return with me and get first place in the Murong clan's clan trial. Let the elders see your value and they won't do anything to your mother then, Murong Feng said.
Why are you helping me?
You're a talent. I can't bear to see you break off all ties with the Murong clan. Returning to the Murong clan is a good thing for both you and the clan. It's impossible for me to return to the Murong clan, but I will participate in the clan trial. I won't let them disturb my mother's rest.
Murong Xian said coldly.
Inside the towering heaven palace, Chu Kuangren was cultivating. He had already reached the perfected battle monarch realm back at the hidden sword canyon. He was only one step away from the honorable realm. He could even cross over to the next level any time. However, he did not. He had been accumulating his foundation all this while. He could still kill Honorable Supremes without breaking through. But to break through, he needed to build the Honorable Supreme Foundation level. The foundation of the Exalt realm didn't just rely on spirit energy, it required comprehension of Dao arts as well. Chu Kuangren did not lack the latter. Even most sages could not compare to him in terms of Dao techniques. What he lacked was the former. I have the 5 great supreme foundation levels in my body and the golden jade body's support. Even an honorable supreme can't compare to my spiritual power. However, I'm still lacking if I want to form the honorable supreme foundation level. No wonder no one has been able to form the honorable supreme foundation level in the past 150,000 years. If the honorable realm is like this, how difficult would it be to form the sage supreme foundation level? Chu Kuangren murmured. He was very ambitious. Now, not only did he want to form the honorable supreme foundation level, but he also wanted to break through to the sage supreme foundation level. Chapter 199. While Chu Kuangren was cultivating, his communication compass suddenly vibrated. The message was from Elder Ruyan. Ha! Are the people from the White Lotus Society here to ask for help? Chu Kuangren was slightly surprised. He got up and left the towering Heaven Palace, arriving at the Longevity Hall. In the hall was the White Lotus Saintess who had returned. Her white clothes were as gentle as a snow lotus, but her usual tranquil smile was nowhere to be seen on her face. There was some worry and anxiety between her brows. Upon seeing Chu Kuangren, the White Lotus Maiden Sage walked up to him. Greetings, Supreme Elder. There's no need to be so polite. Tell me, what exactly happened? It's like this. On my way back to the cult, I suddenly received a message from the cult. They want me to invite the Great Elder to the White Lotus cult and assist them in suppressing the Hell Beasts, the White Lotus Maiden Saintess said. Wasn't the Hell Beast suppressed by the White Lotus Sage ruler a long time ago? Chu Kuangren said in surprise. According to the ancient legends of the White Lotus Society, there was once a hell demonic beast that wreaked havoc in the countries in the south, but it was suppressed by the White Lotus Sage monarch. Because of this, the White Lotus Sage ruler founded the School of White Lotus. Indeed. However, during this period of time, the seal left behind by the Sage King has been damaged. The demonic beasts have taken the opportunity to attack the seal. Although they are being suppressed by the sages of the cult, the demonic chi is still leaking out, causing chaos. The cult leader has asked me to look for you, Elder. He wants to borrow your White Lotus Light of Purification to purify the demonic chi. I see. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly. That won't be a problem. Now that the School of White Lotus and the Black Heaven sect were on the same side, it was only right for them to support each other. Chu Kuangren did not reject the offer. After informing Elder Ruyan and the others, he prepared to depart for the School of White Lotus. At this moment, he saw 2 people walking into the Longevity Hall. It's him? Chu Kuangren was slightly surprised because the person who had just arrived was none other than Murong Feng, whom he had knocked unconscious outside the Black Heaven sect's mountain gate 2 days ago. Oh, you're awake. Chu Kuangren chuckled. His attitude made it seem as if he was not the one who had knocked him out. The corner of Murong Feng's mouth twitched. A hint of fear flashed across his eyes as he looked at Chu Kuangren. He was a little afraid of Chu Kuangren. He fainted with a single strike of the sword. He couldn't believe that a battle monarch realm cultivator could possess such strength. It's all thanks to Brother Chu for showing mercy. Otherwise, I'm afraid I would have lost my life. Murong Feng cupped his hands and said. His attitude was much more polite than when he had challenged Chu Yang 2 days ago. Elder Ruyan, the White Lotus Saintess, and the others watched from the side. They couldn't help but sigh. Indeed, if you're not convinced, you have to give them a good beating. Why did you bring Murong Xian here? Chu Kuangren asked. I want to bring him back to the Murong clan, Murong Feng said. Oh. Chu Kuangren did not say anything. He looked at Murong Xian and asked for his opinion. He wanted to see if Murong Xian was forced to do this. Sect leader, I have some matters to attend to at the Murong clan. I need to return and deal with them. I can't stay at the Black Heaven sect for the time being. Murong Xian's face was filled with guilt. In the eyes of others, his actions made it seem like he was betraying the Black Heaven sect and returning to the Murong clan. However, Chu Kuangren only gave him a deep look before he went forward and patted him on the shoulder. He smiled and said, Go, but you must remember that the Black Heaven sect will always be your strong shield. Yes, sect leader. Once I'm done with this matter, I'll return as soon as possible. Murong Xian nodded firmly. Nonsense. The Black Heaven sect is your home. Of course you have to come back. Chu Kuangren jokingly scolded. You're right, sect leader. After that, Murong Feng left with Murong Xian. Remember, Murong Xian is a member of the Black Heaven sect. If anything happens to him in the Murong clan, I won't forgive you. Before Murong Feng left, Chu Kuangren's cold voice suddenly rang in his ears, causing him to tremble uncontrollably. What's wrong? Murong Xian noticed Murong Feng's strange behavior. Since Chu Kuangren had used his spiritual thought to communicate, no one else besides Murong Feng heard it. No, it's nothing. Murong Feng shook his head with a stiff expression. There was an inexplicable sense of unease in his heart. Was it the right decision for him to visit Murong Xian? He hoped that everything would go smoothly when he returned. Otherwise, who knew what Chu Kuangren would do? All right, let's go too. Chu Kuangren said to the White Lotus Maiden Sage. Besides him, Lan Yu also went with them to purify the demonic qi. Perhaps her holy radiant physique would be of some use. The few of them hurried to the school of White Lotus. Although they were riding on a ferry boat instead of a horse. At first, Chu Kuangren wanted to ride on the godly phoenix. However, considering that there were too many people, and the prideful nature of the divine beast meant that it would not allow anyone else to ride on it, he gave up on the idea. About 2 days later, the few of them arrived at the Full Moon Kingdom, one of the countries to the south of the Azure Dragon domain. This was also the headquarters of the School of White Lotus. Looking down from the sky, Chu Kuangren noticed that the capital of the Full Moon Kingdom was shrouded in a dark mist that exuded an eerie aura. This is demonic qi. Chu Kuangren frowned. Demonic qi was also considered spiritual qi. However, it came from the underworld demonic realm, which was incompatible with the living beings of the firmament star. It was harmful to most living beings. Look, Master. At that moment, Lan Yu pointed at the center of the Full Moon Kingdom's demonic qi. There was a huge white lotus that was formed by countless Taoist patterns floating in the air. It emanated waves of holy qi. There was a lady in the white lotus. She looked peaceful and there was endless Taoist rhymes circulating around her. It was as if she had become one with the white lotus. Below the white lotus was a ferocious dog-like demonic beast with 3 heads and black fur all over its body. Is this the underworld beast? Chu Kuangren had a strange look on his face. A demonic beast from the underworld. A dog with 3 heads. A 3-headed underworld hound. That's right. This is the underworld beast. He has broken through half of the seal. The School of White Lotus Sage is currently suppressing him. The White Lotus Maiden Sage said solemnly. The few of them got off the ferry boat and landed on the streets of the Full Moon Kingdom. Once they landed, they could feel the eerie demonic qi even more clearly. The demonic qi had almost covered half of the Full Moon Kingdom's capital and was still spreading outwards. Meanwhile, the people from the School of White Lotus were trying to dispel the demonic qi. Rays of white light shot out from their hands to dispel the demonic qi. However, compared to the majestic demonic qi, what they did was just a drop in the bucket. All they could do was slow the demonic qi down. In the long run, the demonic qi would eventually spread to the entire capital. Even the entire Full Moon Kingdom and the nearby countries would not be spared. On the streets, countless civilians were kneeling on the ground and praying. God, please protect us. White Lotus above. I hope we can survive this disaster. Besides that, some civilians who had been infected by the demonic qi had lost their minds and were destroying everything around them in a frenzy. The sounds of praying, crying and smashing. The entire Full Moon Kingdom's capital was in chaos. It was not as peaceful as the last time Chu Kuangren came. Swoosh. A figure walked out of the void. It was Chu Kuangren's protector, Honorable Qing Lan. Looking at everything in front of her, Honorable Qing Lan's eyes were filled with shock and sadness. How did this happen? Sigh, things have changed too quickly. A white-robed lady walked over. It was the White Lotus leader. Chapter 200. Things are changing too quickly. In less than 3 days, This demonic beast has broken through the seal left behind by the sage ruler. A huge amount of demonic chi emanated from its body and affected the entire capital city. Many civilians have been infected by this demonic chi. The White Lotus leader sighed and said, "Were there any signs before this?" Honorable Qing Lan asked. "No. Let's not talk about how the demonic beast broke through the seal. Let's first purify this demonic chi," Chu Kuangren said. The demonic chi that emanated from the three-headed hound was too terrifying. Ordinary civilians would lose their minds the moment they came into contact with it. Even cultivators would lose their minds if they stayed in it for too long. That's why I invited you here, Elder. Our sage is busy suppressing that demonic beast. Only your White Lotus light of purification can effectively dispel the demonic chi, the White Lotus leader said. All right, let's get started then, Chu Kuangren said. As he walked towards the demonic chi, a mysterious Taoist rhyme emanated from his body and white lotuses appeared in the void. The white lotuses danced in the air, and wherever they passed, the demonic chi was quickly disintegrated and turned into nothingness like snow under the scorching sun. A huge amount of demonic chi was swept away. Even the civilians who had been infected by the demonic chi gradually regained their senses after coming into contact with the white lotuses. Where am I? What's going on? Why did I become like that? Is this White Lotus a sage ruler? When the civilians who had regained their senses saw Chu Kuangren surrounded by the white lotuses, they immediately knelt down. The people who had been praying also saw this scene and kowtowed in Chu Kuangren's direction. Their eyes were filled with fanaticism like the most devout believers. It's the sage ruler. The sage ruler has appeared. Boo-hoo, we're saved. This is great. It's the bachelor sage, the only one who has mastered the White Lotus light of purification left behind by the sage ruler. The bachelor sage must be the reincarnation of the sage ruler. Isn't the sage ruler a female? I told you she's reincarnated. It's possible that she's a man or a woman. Behind Chu Kuangren, a white light flashed on Lan Yu's body, and a gorgeous silver-white armor covered her body. She spread her wings and flew above the demonic chi. Endless white light radiated from her body as she activated the holy radiant body's power to the extreme. The Tao body phenomenon shone with a blinding light. Under the illumination of the white light, the demonic chi dissipated bit by bit. That's the oracle. It must be the oracle. Lan Yu's holy aura was especially prominent in the sky full of demonic energy. Many people noticed her at first glance. For a time, the rumor that the Sage King had descended to the mortal world to save the world spread. In the center of the boundless demonic chi, the demonic beast suppressed by the gigantic white lotus let out a series of angry roars as it glared at Chu Kuangren and Lan Yu with a face full of anger. The aura of light, and this abhorrent Taoist rhyme. Is it that whore White Lotus Saint King? No, she should have died a long time ago. It seems like someone has inherited her legacy. Even in death, she won't let me have an easy time. The middle head of the Cerberus roared angrily. Above him, the woman in the white lotus revealed a hint of anger in her eyes. You're asking for trouble for insulting a holy king. Her Taoist rhyme circulated around her as she activated the giant white lotus to suppress the three-headed hound. The three-headed hound's bones cracked. D****. You better not let me break this seal. Otherwise, I'll eat all of you. Eat all of you. The three-headed hound howled in a frenzy. At that moment, a black-robed figure walked over from afar. This person was walking through the streets that were filled with demonic chi, yet his body was not affected at all. It was as if he had become one with the demonic chi. Who's there? The School of White Lotus Sage frowned when she saw that. Oh, this aura is quite interesting. The three-headed hound's eyes lit up when it saw the black-robed figure. It said, I can sense the aura of demonic chi from you. The black-robed figure walked towards the three-headed hound and revealed a skinny face. Then he took out a pitch-black dagger, channeled his spiritual power, and stabbed it at the three-headed hound's neck. With a clang, the dagger pierced the three-headed hound's neck with a metallic sound. A surge of demonic chi erupted, and the mysterious black-robed figure was blasted away by the demonic chi. The three-headed hound's expression became extremely ferocious. Its three heads looked at the black-robed figure, bared its teeth and said, What are you trying to do? TSK, you're indeed a demonic beast comparable to a sage ruler. Even after being sealed for so many years, your body is still indestructible. My soul-devouring dagger can't pierce through your body. The black-robed figure laughed strangely. The school of White Lotus Sage was surprised when she saw that. Could this mysterious black-robed figure be an ally? However, the other party gave her an uncomfortable feeling. Soul-devouring dagger. One of the 33 sacred weapons of the demonic world, the soul-devouring dagger. Why is it with you? The three-headed hound's expression changed drastically. It looked at the dagger in the black-robed figure's hand, and fear gradually appeared in its eyes. The 33 sacred weapons of the demonic world were the most terrifying sacred weapons in the demonic world. Each of them was at least a sage ruler weapon. The soul-devouring dagger was one of them. This dagger had one function, and that was to strengthen itself by absorbing the souls of living beings in the demonic world. It was a weapon that countless living beings in the demonic world, and even powerful beings in the demonic world like the three-headed hound, feared. Cut the crap. Hand over your demonic soul. The mysterious black-robed figure activated the spiritual power in his body, and poured it into the soul-devouring dagger in his hand. Then he threw it out. The soul-devouring dagger turned into a stream of light and landed on the three-headed hound, which was suppressed by the white lotus and unable to move. Sparks flew. Finally, under the full power of the mysterious black-robed figure, the dagger finally tore a hole in the three-headed hound's body. It was just an insignificant small hole, but it made the three-headed hound let out an extremely shrill cry. Waves of soul power flowed out from the hole made by the soul-devouring dagger, and were absorbed by the mysterious black-robed figure. Oh! As the soul power entered his body, the mysterious black-robed figure revealed an extremely joyful expression. He could feel that his power and cultivation level were increasing rapidly. This was comparable to thousands of years of hard work. My painstaking efforts to break the seal and release you were not in vain. The effect of this soul power is indeed powerful, the mysterious black-robed figure said. Hearing this, the school of White Lotus Sage's expression changed. What did you say just now? You were the one who released this demonic beast. That's right. You deserve to die. The school of White Lotus Sage's expression darkened. Hee, what can you do to me? If you withdraw your spiritual power now, this demonic beast will break the seal. Are you going to ignore the lives of the people of the Great Moon Kingdom and attack me? B*****. The school of White Lotus Sage's pretty face was filled with rage. However, as the mysterious black-robed figure said, she was currently suppressing the three-headed hound and could not leave. Otherwise, if the three-headed hound broke the seal, the entire Great Moon Kingdom and the neighboring countries would be affected. You'd better obediently suppress this demonic beast. When I suck its soul power dry and it dies, it will be considered as having solved a huge problem for you. By then, the school of White Lotus will have to thank me. The mysterious black-robed figure chuckled. Chapter 201. Thank you? I'd be more than happy to kill you. At that moment, a cold voice was suddenly heard. The mysterious black-robed man's expression froze as he looked behind him in disbelief. This is impossible. This is the place with the densest demonic chi. Other than sages, even honorable supremes would be affected if they approach. Who is it? The reason why he dared to release the demonic beast and steal its soul energy while the sages were suppressing it was not only because of his cultivation level and the soul-devouring dagger, but also because he knew that the demonic beast would release a large amount of demonic chi when it broke its seal. That way, no one would stop him. However, things had developed beyond his expectations. The black-robed man and the school of White Lotus's sage looked towards the source of the voice. They saw a white-robed figure slowly walking towards them. The newcomer was dressed in a white robe that was spotless. A beautiful sword hung from his waist, and he wore white boots. His hair reached his waist, and his facial features were so exquisite that no one could find a single flaw on him. He was surrounded by white lotuses, which added a sense of holiness to his already extraordinary temperament. Wherever he went, the demonic chi would dissipate without affecting him at all. The black-robed man also noticed that the street behind him had already returned to its original state. There was no trace of demonic chi left behind. This person had purified the demonic chi all the way here. At that thought, the black-robed man was shocked. After all, the three-headed hound was a demonic beast that was comparable to a sage ruler. Although it had yet to break its seal and was being suppressed by a sage, the amount of demonic chi that it released was still immeasurable. The entire school of White Lotus had come out in full force, but it only managed to slow down the spread of demonic chi. However, this person could purify it all the way here.
White Lotus Light of Purification. Are you the descendant of that B*TCH White Lotus Sage ruler?
The three-headed hound endured the pain of having its soul energy extracted, and its 3 heads and 6 eyes stared straight at Chu Kuangren. The Taoist rhyme on his body made it extremely unhappy.
Dog, stay down there and shut up, Chu Kuangren said indifferently.
He then looked at the black-robed man and activated his Eye of Revelation to analyze the person's information. King Wuguan, one of the 10 Yama palaces of the Demonic Cultivator Organization. Honorable Supreme, cultivates the sage techniques, Rakshasa technique, Een Enderfinger.
Oh, someone from the Underworld Palace. Chu Kuangren was surprised.
When he heard this, the black-robed man's pupils constricted slightly. Never had he imagined that Chen Shi would be able to see through his origins with a single glance.
I say, you demonic cultivators sure are having a good time. You keep showing up in front of me.
Chu Kuangren's eyes were filled with impatience and disgust. He did not have a good impression of these demonic cultivators at all. It was one thing for her to cause trouble all day long, but she was always causing trouble in front of him.
Like a swarm of flies. Very annoying. Chu Kuangren,
the black-robed man, who was King Wuguan, revealed a hint of fear in his eyes.
He did not expect Chu Kuangren to show up here. He had heard quite a bit about Chu Kuangren's name in the past few days.
If one were to choose who was the most feared person in the demonic orthodoxies this year, there was no doubt that Chu Kuangren would be the best candidate. Elder, this person is currently absorbing the soul strength of a magical beast.
The White Lotus School sage said to Chu Kuangren.
Oh, that's interesting. Items related to the soul were very rare, and the fact that this demonic cultivator in front of him could absorb soul strength piqued his interest. He glanced at the soul-devouring dagger on the 3-headed hound's neck and felt an incomparably strange aura from it.
Moreover, there seemed to be an invisible connection between this dagger and King Wuguan. Is this how you extract the soul strength?
Chu Kuangren's figure turned into a stream of light and appeared in front of the 3-headed hound. His speed was so fast that King Wuguan could not even catch a glimpse of him. His pupils shrunk as he knew that he was no match for Chu Kuangren. Everyone says that this person's cultivation level is not high, but his combat strength is heaven-defying.
So that's how it is.
King Wuguan was shocked. Chu Kuangren, even a sage has to use all his strength to suppress this magical beast.
You should know how terrifying it is. I'm using the soul-devouring dagger to kill it now. I'm helping you guys.
King Wuguan said loudly. For your own selfish reasons, you released the magical beast, causing countless civilians to suffer, and now you're telling me that you're helping us? You demonic cultivators are quite good at distorting the truth. As he spoke, Chu Kuangren raised his hand and unleashed a palm attack. The majestic human mountain strength instantly erupted and sent King Wuguan flying.
The 10 Yama palaces of the Underworld Palace? That's quite a name, but this is all you've got.
Do you guys even deserve to be called the Underworld Palace? Chu Kuangren's figure turned into a stream of light and once again appeared in front of King Wuguan. The Battle Monarch domain erupted, and the 5 great foundation levels within his body shone brightly. His spiritual power surged and instantly suppressed King Wuguan, who still wanted to resist. Chu Kuangren reached out and grabbed King Wuguan's neck, lifting him into the air like a little chick. He said coldly, "Some time ago, one of you guys called the Chakra King was killed by me. Now it's your turn. Perhaps in the future, I'll find an opportunity to annihilate your so-called Underworld Palace." Not far away, the school of White Lotus Sage gulped as she watched. She had heard rumors about Chu Kuangren before and knew that he was powerful, but she did not expect him to be this powerful. An honorable supreme could not even fight back in front of him. How was this a battle monarch? She would believe him even if he were a sage. Chu Kuangren. King Wuguan's face flushed red as he uttered word by word. Following that, an extremely powerful force suddenly erupted from his body. Under this force, Chu Kuangren was forced to retreat a few meters. Oh, you've gotten stronger. Chu Kuangren was slightly surprised. The aura on King Wuguan's body continued to skyrocket,
especially his Taoist rhymes. It was a world of difference from before. Chu Kuangren activated his Eye of Revelation to analyze King Wuguan's situation. Spiritual power increasing, Taoist rhymes increasing, a large amount of soul energy is being burned. Originating from the three-headed demonic beast. The analysis information flashed before his eyes one by one. At that moment, the three-headed hound beside him let out a scream, and the demonic qi on its body fluctuated violently due to the intense pain. Due to the analysis results of the Eye of Revelation, Chu Kuangren instantly determined the reason for its scream. He could not help but chuckle. A dignified sage ruler-level demonic beast has been reduced to a lackey, having its soul burned by an honorable. You're really a disgrace as a sage ruler. Soul Devourer Dagger. It's all. Damn it. Soul Devourer Dagger. The three-headed hound roared in anger. Chu Kuangren ignored it and looked at King Wuguan instead. If he removed the Soul Devourer Dagger from the three-headed hound's body, King Wuguan would no longer have any soul energy to burn, and naturally, he would not be able to level up. However, he did not do that. Removing the Soul Devourer Dagger was equivalent to helping the three-headed hound. He was quite happy to see King Wuguan continue to hurt the three-headed hound, so it would be easier for him to deal with him later. Chu Kuangren die. King Wuguan did not think as much as Chu Kuangren. He frantically burned the soul energy that he extracted from the three-headed hound, turning it into his cultivation in an attempt to kill Chu Kuangren. Chapter 202. Chu Kuangren die. With a furious roar, the Taoist rhymes around King Wuguan boiled, and the spiritual power that was mixed with the three-headed hound's soul power surged wildly. He looked like a demon yet not a demon, like a human yet not a human. Een absolute finger. As soon as he pointed his finger out, a monstrous amount of finger strength instantly erupted, and a chilling and domineering Taoist rhyme locked onto Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren stood his ground and did not move an inch. The white lotuses surrounded him, and when the finger energies landed on the white lotuses, they disintegrated into nothingness. The sage of the school of White Lotus was slightly surprised. I can't believe Chu Kuangren has mastered the White Lotus light of purification to such an extent. I'm afraid he's already at the level of a sage ruler. Chu Kuangren's understanding of the White Lotus light of purification was already on par with the White Lotus sage ruler. The only thing he lacked now was his cultivation level. Is that all? A hint of disappointment flashed across Chu Kuangren's eyes. He was able to kill Honorable Supremes when he was in the late stage of the Battle Monarch realm. Now that he was only half a step away from the Honorable realm, he could even step into the Honorable realm at any time if he wanted to. Honorable Supremes were nothing to him. At this time, King Wuguan had ignited the Cerberus's soul power, and his battle prowess had multiplied. However, he still hadn't broken through the realm of Honorable Supreme. Could it be that the wound is too small and you didn't absorb enough soul power? As Chu Kuangren spoke, he walked towards the three-headed hound, grabbed the soul-devouring dagger, and pressed it hard into its body. With a poochie sound, the soul-devouring dagger pierced deep into the Cerberus's body, widening the wound by more than 10 times. He could feel his soul power depleting even faster. Motherfucker! The three-headed hound roared and glared at Chu Kuangren. Even King Wuguan and the School of White Lotus's sage were stunned by Chu Kuangren's actions. They stared at him with their mouths agape. What was he doing? Giving aid to the enemy? The influx of a large amount of soul power caused King Wuguan's skinny body to expand rapidly like a balloon. King Wuguan's expression changed, and he hurriedly used his spiritual power to ignite the soul power that was crazily surging towards him, causing his strength to soar once again. The unprecedented power made King Wuguan feel as if he could control everything, and he couldn't help but laugh out loud. Power. Endless power. Chu Kuangren, you're too full of yourself. Today, you will pay the price for your arrogance. King Wuguan said loudly. Once again, he pointed his finger and unleashed his sage technique, the terminating finger. Majestic Taoist rhymes and spiritual power converged to form a giant black finger that was so solid that it was almost tangible. It then pressed towards Chu Kuangren with its shadow and raging winds. This power was extremely terrifying. Even a supreme being wouldn't be able to block this attack. This strike already possesses the battle prowess of a quasi-sage. The sage of the School of White Lotus said solemnly. However,
Chu Kuangren remained calm in the face of that finger attack. White lotuses circled around his body, but when they collided with the finger attack, the white lotuses continuously shattered and withered. Even Chu Kuangren himself was forced back several feet by that finger attack.
"Ha, that's more like it.
Come, take a look at this." Chu Kuangren smiled and took out the sacred emerald sword case. With a pat on the sword case, 4 treasured swords flew out and surrounded King Wuguan's body, forming the 4 seasons sword formation.
What is this? Sword array?
Humph, you want to stop me with such a small sword formation? King Wuguan sneered and pointed out with a finger. Violent Taoist rhymes bombarded the sword formation. The void trembled as it collided with the sword chi. However, even with King Wuguan's peerless combat strength, he still could not break through the sword formation. This sword formation is so strong. King Wuguan was shocked, but his hands did not stop. One finger after another, the violent finger attack continuously impacted the sword formation. The 4 seasons sword formation was shaken. Seeing that, Chu Kuangren patted the sword case a few more times. Another 8 long swords flew out. The 12 treasured swords hovered in the void, strengthening the sword formation's power. The sword formation that was originally shaken became even more stable. This sword formation can be strengthened?
D****.
King Wuguan's expression sank. The school of White Lotus Sage was amazed. This Chu Kuangren really has an endless number of tricks up his sleeves. I wonder how many more trump cards he has. She had never heard of Chu Kuangren using a sword formation before. There was no such rumor in the outside world either. Chu Kuangren activated the sword formation and only trapped King Wuguan without killing him. Under such circumstances, the 3-headed hound's soul energy was rapidly depleting. Gradually, the 3-headed hound felt that its mind was becoming hazy. "Young lad, hurry up and kill this guy." Chu Kuangren glanced at it but did not do anything. "Are you waiting for him to suck my soul energy dry before you attack?" The 3-headed hound's 3 heads roared in unison.
"Why not? You!"
The 3-headed hound was enraged, and a fierce look appeared in its eyes. "If that's the case, then let's die together." It then took the initiative to burn its soul energy to increase its demonic chi. The surging demonic chi was boiling, crazily attacking the White Lotus. "Not good, this demonic beast is trying to perish together with us." The school of White Lotus sages' expression changed. The White Lotus that was formed by countless Taoist patterns began to crack under the impact of the demonic chi. Inside the sword formation, King Wuguan also noticed the 3-headed hound's strange behavior. He, who was struggling to break through the sword formation, laughed out loud. "Chu Kuangren, you've gone too far this time. Let's see what you're going to do next. Instead of worrying about us, why don't you worry about yourself?" Chu Kuangren moved his thoughts. Inside the sword formation, the power of the 4 seasons rotation converged and turned into a giant sword shadow. With a majestic force, it smashed towards King Wuguan.
No!
Under this power, King Wuguan had no strength to resist at all. In just an instant, he was blasted into a cloud of blood mist. There's no use killing him now. Once the soul ignition technique is activated, there's no stopping it. Now, all I want to do is to drag all of you in the southern countries down with me. The 3-headed hound's eyes were bloodshot as it roared madly. Terrifying demonic chi attacked the White Lotus, causing the school of White Lotus sages' face to turn pale. "Not good, I can't suppress it any longer. Once he breaks free in his current state, he'll kill every living being in the Full Moon Kingdom in less than an hour." The school of White Lotus sage was extremely anxious. "He won't have that chance," Chu Kuangren said calmly. Suddenly, a pitch-black chain that emanated a gloomy chi appeared in his hand. It was the soul retriever. "Soul ignition? You must have a soul to burn first." The soul retriever swung out and pierced into the 3-headed hound's body. "Come out!" Chu Kuangren let out a low growl as he continuously channeled his spiritual power into the soul retriever. Then, the 3-headed hound's soul was slowly pulled out of its physical body. Unlike the souls that were pulled out in the past, this 3-headed hound's soul seemed to have an invisible flame burning on it. A large amount of soul energy was constantly dissipating. Chu Kuangren did not need to do anything. It would not take long for this soul to burn itself out. It would be fine if the three-headed hound's soul was still in its physical body. The burning soul energy could be turned into a demonic chi catalyst, allowing it to explode with terrifying power. Now, however, it could only stare blankly at the soul energy being burned away by itself. There was no way for it to gain any benefits. Soul Retriever. What the hell is this thing? The three-headed hound's soul looked at the chain on its body. All 6 eyes on its 3 heads were filled with horror. Chapter 203. The three-headed hound's soul was bound by the soul retriever, and it struggled to break free, causing the entire soul retriever to tremble. Whoa, as expected of a sage ruler's soul. Even after so much of its soul energy has been sucked away, it's still so energetic. Chu Kuangren raised an eyebrow and continuously channeled his spiritual power into the soul retriever. Only then was he able to restrain his opponent. Let me go! Let me go! The three-headed hound kept roaring, but it still could not break free. The Soul Devourer dagger had absorbed too much of its soul energy, and now that it had self-immolated its soul, more than half of its soul energy had been depleted. No matter how hard it struggled, it could not break free from the soul retriever. In addition, the soul retriever released a chilling chi that could paralyze one's soul, causing it to gradually lose its strength. After a while, Chu Kuangren yanked the soul retriever, and the sage ruler's soul disappeared from the world just like that. Phew, it's a success. The School of White Lotuses sage breathed a sigh of relief. The white lotuses that filled the sky disappeared. The giant white lotuses that were formed from countless Taoist patterns were already on the verge of collapse under the impact of the demonic chi. After the School of White Lotuses sage withdrew her spiritual power, it could no longer hold on. Cracks appeared on the lotuses, and they shattered into countless light spots. As for the soulless three-headed hound, it lay on the ground with demonic chi and ferocious chi lingering on its body. Greetings, Brother Chu. The School of White Lotuses sage came before Chu Kuangren and bowed. You're too kind. Chu Kuangren returned the gesture. It's all thanks to your help this time. Otherwise, I don't know how things would have turned out. It's my duty. Besides, I still have the title of the School of White Lotuses Supreme Elder on me. Besides, the School of White Lotus and the Black Heaven sect are allies. How could I just sit back and watch? Chu Kuangren said. Then, he looked at the corpse of the three-headed hound on the ground with a fiery look in his eyes. To him, this was a great treasure. How much blood and flesh essence could be refined from the corpse of a sage ruler? It was enough for him to form the supreme honorable foundation level. Seeing that Chu Kuangren was interested in the three-headed hound's carcass, the School of White Lotuses sage said, Brother Chu, you've helped the School of White Lotus this time by protecting the billions of lives in the southern countries. The School of White Lotus doesn't know how to thank you for that. If you're interested in this demonic beast's carcass, you can have it. Then I won't hold back then. Chu Kuangren did not hesitate and kept the three-headed hound's carcass into his yin and yang ring. The School of White Lotuses sage smiled. Although the corpse of a demonic beast that was as powerful as a sage ruler was precious, the three-headed hound came from the underworld demonic realm and had demonic chi on its body that was difficult to use. Hence, it was better to give it to Chu Kuangren. It was both a way to thank him and a way to get closer to him. Even a sage like her had to take Chu Kuangren's display of talent, strength, and technique seriously. She was more than willing to take advantage of this situation. Young master. At that moment, Lan Yu flapped her wings and came to Chu Kuangren's side. Most of the demonic energy has been dispersed. Senior Qing Lan and the others are dealing with the remaining small amounts of demonic energy. I believe it won't be long before they are completely gone, Lan Yu said. Okay, I got it. This time, the demonic beast seal breaking has finally been averted, the School of White Lotuses sage said, completely relieved. Thank you, Bachelor Sage. We will never forget the Bachelor Sage's great kindness. Bachelor Sage, you have done us a great service. Commoners gradually walked out from both sides of the street. They knelt before Chu Kuangren and kowtowed with great sincerity. They did not know that Chu Kuangren was already the School of White Lotuses Supreme Elder. However, to them, it did not matter whether he was a bachelor sage or an elder. It did not affect Chu Kuangren's high position in their hearts. Chu Kuangren saw that some of these people were dressed in tattered clothes and looked exhausted. Some of them were injured and bleeding profusely. Even so, they still knelt before Chu Kuangren and looked at him, expressing their gratitude. Chu Kuangren took a step forward and a mysterious Taoist rhyme emanated from his body. That Taoist rhyme was mixed with a gentle spiritual power that spread out and brushed across everyone's body like a spring breeze. Everyone who was originally tired suddenly became energetic, and those who were injured also quickly recovered from their injuries. Even those who were suffering from old illnesses felt their bodies become much more relaxed.
My injuries are healed. Me too.
I've been suffering from a cold leg for many years, but now I can move freely again.
I'm all right now.
Bachelor Sage, it's all thanks to you.
Thank you, Bachelor Sage.
Thank you, Bachelor Sage. Chu Kuangren smiled in satisfaction as he looked at the people who had recovered. It seems that this spring breeze healing technique is quite useful. The spring breeze healing technique was an emperor technique recorded in the Eternal Emperor scripture. It was an emperor technique that was specifically used to restore vitality. However, since Chu Kuangren had the immortal body, he felt that this emperor technique would not be of much use to him, so he did not study it. However, it seemed that this emperor technique was not meant for him. If anything were to happen in the future, it would not be a bad idea to use it to save others. Chu Kuangren walked on the street with Lan Yu with him. Taoist rhyme emanated from his body as the spring breeze blew. Wherever he went, withered trees were revived, including those who were injured in this disaster. This scene was like a miracle. Countless people knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Chu Kuangren as he walked away. In an instant, Chu Kuangren's status in the hearts of the Full Moon Kingdom citizens skyrocketed. He was almost on par with the School of White Lotus leader. The School of White Lotus's sage could not help but shake her head as she witnessed everything that had happened. This kid is decisive in killing his enemies, but he's also benevolent. He's a sage on the inside and a king on the outside. Coupled with his talent, he's a rare talent. She was even more determined to build a good relationship with Chu Kuangren. After dealing with the demonic beasts, Chu Kuangren did not return to the Black Heaven sect immediately. Instead, he found a secluded spot in the School of White Lotus. This dagger is quite interesting. Chu Kuangren played with the soul-devouring dagger that he had pulled out from the three-headed hound's body. Since it was related to soul energy, it was obvious how extraordinary this dagger was. He tossed it into his yin and yang ring, planning to refine it when he had the time. Now, he wanted to refine the three-headed hound and break through to the honorable realm. He spent a total of 10 days in this closed-door meditation. The three-headed hound's flesh and blood essence was so majestic that Chu Kuangren suspected that even an ordinary sage ruler would not have such a majestic amount of flesh and blood essence. After spending 10 days to refine the three-headed hound, the amount of flesh and blood essence that he had obtained was almost inestimable. Coupled with the treasures that he had obtained from the Gacha previously, it allowed him to form the supreme honorable foundation level in one fell swoop. Buzz buzz. On this day, the void trembled. A mysterious Taoist rhyme emanated from Chu Kuangren's closed-door meditation spot, and Taoist rhymes began to reverberate in the sky. All the cultivators in the School of White Lotus were shocked. Even the sages could not help but shudder as they looked towards the direction of Chu Kuangren's closed-door meditation spot. A large amount of spiritual qi gathered above Chu Kuangren's closed-door meditation spot, forming a huge, solid spiritual qi vortex. The spiritual qi was so dense that it made the air feel sticky. It was as if water could drip out at any time. The cultivators who rushed over were shocked by the dense spiritual qi. Then, an even more shocking scene happened. In the sky above Chu Kuangren, lines of Taoist patterns began to circulate and gradually condensed into ancient golden runes. Every single one of these talisman markings was drawn out smoothly with a single stroke, and they seemed to be formed by nature and were extremely profound.
1, 2, 3. 9 runes.
One of the cultivators could not help but gulp as he said in shock. The crowd then saw the 9 runes that were drawn in a single stroke begin to combine into an ancient, majestic talisman. The talisman emanated a dazzling golden light in the sky, and waves of Taoist rhymes surrounded it as if it was interpreting the essence of Taoism.
9 strokes Taoist rhymes.
Supreme Honorable Foundation Level.
Chapter 204.
The 9 strokes Taoist Seal, the Supreme Honorable Foundation Level. All the cultivators from the School of White Lotus were dumbfounded. In the past 150,000 years, No one had ever managed to form the supreme honorable foundation level. It was no longer a question of whether it was rare or not. There was no such thing. This must be the residence of the Supreme Elder.
Yes, besides him. Can you think of anyone else who could form the supreme honorable foundation level?
There's no one else but him. I remember that the Supreme Elder had formed several supreme foundation levels before. The Supreme Elder is going to defy the heavens.
The Supreme Elder's foundation level is too terrifying. Even the School of White Lotus's sage was speechless.
She had witnessed something that no one had been able to do for hundreds of thousands of years.
Apart from spiritual power, the formation of the supreme honorable foundation level is also crucial for one's Tao techniques, especially the latter.
Brother Chu's Tao techniques are no weaker than a sage's, so it makes sense that he could form such a foundation level.
The School of White Lotus's sage murmured. Chu Kuangren was just too much of a genius.
The transformations in the sky dispersed.
Inside the room, Chu Kuangren sat on his bed with golden light circulating around his body. Countless Taoist patterns intertwined, and his body had a golden jade-like luster. Inside his body, the 6 supreme foundation levels radiated with divine light, and as the spiritual power surged, Taoist rhymes seemed to reverberate. Chu Kuangren slowly opened his eyes, and a smile appeared on his handsome face. Supreme Honorable Foundation Level. I've finally succeeded. He felt that his current strength was far stronger than before. Whether it was his spiritual power or his Tao techniques, they had all improved tremendously. Even if it was a quasi-sage, he was confident that he could defeat the other party without using his sword formation or monarch technique. As for the sages, it was hard to say since they had not fought before. However, even if he could not win, he would not lose. Although it sounded a little unbelievable because to countless cultivators, everyone below the sages were like ants. The gap between sages and those below them was too big.
However, Chu Kuangren had just ascended to the honorable realm, yet he was confident that he was no weaker than a sage.
If word of this got out, it would cause a huge commotion. Chu Kuangren got up and walked out of the room.
Outside the door was Lan Yu, who had been guarding him, as well as a large group of cultivators who were attracted by the Martial Venerable's foundation anomaly.
At that moment, everyone looked at Chu Kuangren with admiration. Even the Chosens who had wanted to compete with him previously were convinced of his superiority, and no longer had any thoughts of going against him. The gap was too big. They weren't on the same level at all. And when this gap was large to a certain extent, everyone's original envy and jealousy might turn into fanatical worship. Fellow Taoist Chu, congratulations on successfully advancing to the venerable realm. The sage of the School of White Lotus walked over and said with a smile. It's just fate, Chu Kuangren said. After that, Chu Kuangren and Lan Yu stayed in the Full Moon Kingdom for a few days. Just as they were about to return to the Black Heaven sect, Elder Ruyan sent Chu Kuangren a message. Taoist Murong Xian had asked the sect for help. Upon hearing this news, Chu Kuangren's eyes flashed with a cold light. Did the Murong clan not take my warning seriously? Before Murong Xian left, Chu Kuangren had warned Murong Feng. But now it seemed that Murong Xian had still encountered some unfair treatment in the Murong clan, causing a proud Taoist to ask for help from the sect. Contact Murong Xian and ask him what happened. We can't reach him. After we received the message asking for help, we contacted Murong Xian, but he didn't respond. If I'm not wrong, he must be under the control of the Murong clan or even imprisoned. Elder Ruyan's solemn voice came from the communication compass. Upon hearing that, Chu Kuangren's eyes turned even colder. What a Murong clan! Looks like I'll have to pay them a visit myself. As a Taoist of the Black Heaven sect, Murong Xian was his junior brother and his little fan. Whether it was for business or personal reasons, Chu Kuangren could not just sit back and watch. Sect leader, the Murong clan is still a sage orthodoxy with a sage in charge. It's too risky for you to go there yourself.
How about this? Let the third forefather and the others go and negotiate with them first.
Elder Ruyan suggested. No matter what, Murong Xian is my junior brother. Now that he's been wronged by the Murong clan, I can't just stand by and do nothing. Negotiation is fine too, but let's talk about it after we beat him up. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. Elder Ruyan felt helpless when she heard that. However, when she thought about it, she realized that what Chu Kuangren said made sense.
Although Murong Xian was a member of the Murong clan, he had been a Taoist of the Black Heaven sect for many years. If he was really treated unfairly by the Murong clan and kept giving in, it would only make the Black Heaven sect look weak.
Alright, that's all for now. I'll make a move first. Chu Kuangren ended the call with Elder Ruyan.
After that, he departed for the Murong clan. The Murong clan was located in the Black Warrior domain, which was quite far away from the school of White Lotus where Chu Kuangren was. It would take a few days even if he took the ferry boat. On the ferry boat, Chu Kuangren stood against the wind. A hint of worry flashed across his eyes, but it was soon replaced by a fierce look.
Murong clan, I hope you don't go overboard.
Chu Kuangren collected his thoughts, opened the roulette, and started the Gacha roulette. Congratulations, host. You have obtained a Starlight grade item, Elusive Mirage.
Elusive Mirage? A replica of it. Chu Kuangren's face darkened. What the hell did I just get?
However, it was still a Starlight grade item. Chu Kuangren curiously opened his inventory and looked at the Elusive Mirage. This is... His eyes lit up. In one of the slots in his inventory, there was a large pitch-black ship that was covered in ancient golden patterns. I didn't expect the Elusive Mirage to be a ferry boat.
Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up.
Retrieve the Elusive Mirage. He commanded in his mind. Suddenly, a gigantic black ferry boat appeared above the sea of clouds. The ferry boat was so huge that it looked like an ancient beast. The ferry boat that Chu Kuangren and Lan Yu were on was like a small boat in front of the Elusive Mirage. It was not even worth mentioning. The Elusive Mirage was mainly black, and it shone with a gloomy luster under the sunlight. On the deck, there were rows of pavilions of different styles. There were fake mountains, gardens, and rare beasts. How was this a ferry boat? It was clearly a floating palace. If this is just a replica, then what does the real Elusive Mirage look like? Chu Kuangren was a little shocked. Beside him, Lan Yu's mouth was also slightly open. She was extremely shocked. Lan Yu, switch to another ferry boat, Chu Kuangren said as he kept the ferry boat under his feet and went to the Elusive Mirage. As soon as he stepped on the Elusive Mirage, a mysterious feeling surged in Chu Kuangren's heart. It was as if he had become one with the Elusive Mirage. In an instant, he controlled everything about the Elusive Mirage.
Let's go!
Chu Kuangren commanded in his mind. The Taoist patterns on the surface of the Elusive Mirage glowed with a golden light. It was as if an ancient beast had awakened from its slumber. Then, spiritual power gathered at the tail of the Elusive Mirage, forming two giant whirlpools that erupted with a terrifying propulsion force. The Elusive Mirage shot into the distance, leaving behind two giant white scars in the sea of clouds behind it. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.